Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Ready Steady Podcast. It's episode 29 of this podcast where I'm joined by Barry and we talk about board games.
If you don't know what you're getting in for yet, then, well, brace yourself.
Well, this episode is going to be a little bit of a departure from our normal fare where we talk about what we've been playing and what we've seen in the news, which is interesting to us because we will also be talking about the UK Games Expo, which is an annual expo here in the UK in Birmingham. And this is quite a big one, actually. It's the biggest in the UK. It's definitely not Essen scale, but it's certainly much, much bigger than your normal board game conventions. So
I think we're ranking third, is that?
Is that third biggest now?
So,
after Gen Con?
I think Essen, Gen Con, yeah.
Okay.
An expo, because you're putting 35,000 people through the doors over the weekend? Or is it even more than that?
Well, they make some amount of distinction between attendance and uniques.
Well, as a 3-day event, I am one unique, but I am 3 visits.
Right. Okay, well, that's silly. So let's count uniques. So in 2021, they had 10,500. In 2024, almost 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quadrupled in size. It's massive now, which explains why it's hard to get gaming table space.
Well, they've got a whole hall they're doing nothing with.
Well, this is true. So they are set up in the Expo Center, big convention center in Birmingham. It's not really in Birmingham. It's outside of Birmingham, in the middle of the countryside.
Birmingham Airport.
Right near Birmingham Airport. But there is also a whole series of hotels and restaurants and things around there. It really is sort of like set up. And to be clear, the convention, which is 40,000 people annually, uses 3 out of an enormous number of halls. So it doesn't take up, even though it feels very big and it feels very well attended, it barely scrapes the surface of the actual size of the convention center, which is enormous. But even so, I guess third place after Gen Con is pretty significant. And what's nice about the UK Games Expo is it tends to have a very good balance of publisher, attendance, events and live events and fun things like that, as well as open gaming. So it's always nice to go down to the UKGE and catch up with everybody. It's more relaxed than a huge event like Essen and things like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I know Barry had cooled a little bit on it last year. I think we spoke about that, but you've decided to give it another crack.
Yeah, so last year I had real problems with the 40,000 other people that attended. It made it very difficult to get in at the tables, to organise demos, to play the sort of games I wanted to experience before deciding whether or not to bank them on Kickstarter. You'll get a lot of stuff here that's pre-crowdfunding. You'll get games here that are new that you want to perhaps try before you buy, and a whole bunch of maybe older games that are still popular that I've not got a chance to play yet. And whilst the games library there, I think this year's Thirsty Meeples, putting on the game library and the gaming area, you can usually get some space. That was super busy that last year as well. And I just felt like there was too many people and too many things crammed in to let me experience the show in the way that I wanted. And they tried to do, to my mind, they're still trying to do and still trying to be everything to everyone. I would like to see them focus on the open gaming area for people to play, and demos, allow the publishers to show off what they've got, more so than what they have, which is a lot of, I guess the retailers are paying for a lot of the space. Fine, I get it. They want to be there. They're paying you for the space. But the big ones are this year. Hall 1, which they weren't going to have, and it's a large hall, is only going to be tickets and the bring-in buy. And I'm just like, put more, sell the space for cheap, right? Get people in there just showing off their games. I want to see games. That's why I'm there. I want to play games. That's why I'm there. Everything else is sort of incidental.
Well, the other sort of issue that they've had, I suppose, is that everyone has to clear out of the halls at 11, so they can make all the open gaming they want there. But at the end of the day, there's the people have to go back to their hotels to game, and the hotel spaces become in very big demand, and those get packed as well. So fingers crossed it all sort of works out this year. We'll have to see. But we've been going for a long time. You and I have been going since way back, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's 10 years of actual attendance. I think I thought it was 10 years last year when we did the podcast for pre-UKGE, but actually the year that COVID had everything shut down, I guess that doesn't count because I wasn't there.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm something similar, I think, although I have not actually looked into it because that'll make me feel old. So it's meaningless. Anyway, we are going to talk about the games we've looked at that are there. There's a ton of them. There's very rarely sort of like exclusive hot new releases at UKG. Occasionally there'll be one or two, but sort of what there is generally a good representation of is stuff that's been kind of hard to find, a little bit difficult to find, and so you might be able to get it there. Publishers will show up with nice collections of things as well that you can pick up. So if there's been something you're looking for and the publisher is there, there's a good chance you might be able to get a copy of it. It tends to, a lot of the big sort of, or not big, but a lot of the games that tend to reappear there are the Essen releases, right? From last year, the ones that sort of were announced at Essen, or they had 500 copies and they sold out and they've been waiting for the print run to come in, stuff like that. So I've seen a few things like that. But then also like Kickstarters that's just delivered. I noticed that Apex is apparently available to buy. We'll have to see how true that is, but the Kickstarter backers have been receiving that for the last few weeks. So there might be some hot new Kickstarters as well. And we'll get into all of that after the news, which is now.
Sweet. Well, we're straight into the news. I think.
I skipped the listener comments. Should we start with that? My bad. I added a new section, forgot about it.
Immediately forgot.
Well, we'll start. So just had a few listener comments on the last episode that I wanted to mention very briefly because we like it when people engage with us and leave us nice comments. And so then we'll do the news as usual. But Paul from Gaming Rules, you might have heard of them. It's another board game channel, slightly bigger than ours, maybe a little. But Paul commented on your comments about thematic representation in Euro games, specifically on the topic of inventions. You're mentioning something about you can't innovate on your own invention or something like that. And Paul pointed out that you cannot, you can present your own inventions, but you cannot innovate on them. Other people have to innovate on them. And that's sort of the thematically how it works, because once the invention has been released into the wild, it can then be iterated upon by anyone, and often that's how these things work in anything really, marketing and everything. Somebody comes up with some cool new idea and then everyone takes it away and does their own thing with it.
To elaborate on that a little further, the order is a little unusual in that somebody presents an idea, then before it is released, it is innovated upon. You cannot retroactively innovate upon an invention once it has been published. Now let me just double share an inventions the action. Let me just do this from memory. So the action of presenting an idea is one where you basically, you are the person that comes up with that idea, and then it can immediately be shared by yourself or another player, but the innovation can only occur before it has been shared. And so that's where it seems odd that innovate action perhaps isn't after it's been shared and somebody comes up with a slightly better version or something a little later in the round, that you kind of have to be on it before it's put out in the world.
That is peculiar. That's kind of the opposite of what I would expect.
Yeah. So and it wasn't just that. There's a few things with the game I was suggesting that didn't gel for the people I played with. It made mechanical sense to me. I kind of knew what I was going for, but other people couldn't quite grok why they were doing things in a certain order. And there's a definite flow to presenting an idea that's sort of 1, 2, 4, 3, 5.
Sure, and I mean that's very Vital Lacerda to have that sort of logistical path that you're trying to optimize, and ideally combo off of, so you're moving your logistics forward while also gaining some other benefits as well. And I did leave a note here because I haven't played Innovations and I don't know the rules for it, but I left a note here that just said, it's very common for inventors to innovate on their own things as well. So while I appreciate Paul's point, and it's thematic that other people can take your idea and innovate upon it, it's also not thematic that you can't innovate your own idea. Yeah. So there's that balance again, and that's sort of what we're talking about. It's like I was reading the rules for one of the games coming out at UKGE this year, a space game, which I might talk about later, where you can build outposts on a planet to gain resources, but there's a space on the planet for each player, and each player can have one outpost on the planet for the resources. And so conceptually, why? Why would you stop at one outpost? If you're mining resources, surely you'd keep building more mines until you got all the resources. Why would you wait for your competitors to show up and build outposts? You wouldn't. So again, that's just an abstraction, right? We know there's a space for each player because that's the limitations of the game. Yeah. That's how it's balanced itself. It wants to incentivize a player presence on the planet system. But we give the Eurogame sort of a more of a pass on these things than, say, a thematically driven game. Like I might talk about a different thematically driven game later when we get to UKG, and I will. So stick around. Anyway, we had another comment from someone whose handle I can't pronounce and who I know personally, so I'm not going to call them by their real name, but let's call them Game Critic. And Game Critic says, this was when we were talking about the Matago folks on a map triptychs of Kemet and Inish and Cyclades, and they point out the forgotten stepchild Yucatan, which everyone forgot about. And so, yeah, fair enough. We didn't mention Yucatan. I don't know if Matago marketed it as part of that set. I know that they sort of did. I also know that it was a Kickstarter, and I think it was a Kickstarter that they did before the Cyclades Legendary Edition, which, to be fair, I'm not sure if they actually did the Cyclades Legendary Edition or if they just worked with Open Sesame who did it. But I know that Studio H fulfilled it, at least here and probably in France too, because they're a French publisher. So I'm not sure how much Matago was involved with that Kickstarter campaign anyway. I know that people were not very impressed with their Kemet campaign, although I did back it, Blood and Sand, and I thought it was fine. In my experience, that's just mine personally. But I don't know. I think Yucatan was even before Kemet, Blood and Sand when they kickstarted that. It was a while ago. I think it delivered around 2023 or 24. But it is from one of the designers of Kemet. The Kemet was a collab, Guillaume Montiage. So one of the designers of Kemet. Did you play Yucatan, Barry, before I start talking about my notes?
I saw this and I saw this when it was live on the Kickstarter, and then I never seen it again.
Yeah, so I know somebody in my game group back in London before I left had backed it, and they played it. I didn't get a chance to play with them at the time, but so it's sort of like an area control focus on a map game. It's set in historical South America. You're playing as the Mayans, and there are fantastical creatures, not unlike Kemet, that you can bring in. And there's an element of area control. I read through some of the reviews on BGG, and they're very, very mixed. They're all over the place. The general consensus seems to be that there is a good game in there somewhere, but you have to wade through one of the worst rule books people have ever seen to get there. And so that's, I've left a comment here, that's probably why it's been forgotten about, because nobody actually could figure out how to play it. And when they could, they didn't want to have to teach it. And apparently it features cards and powers as well. So it's not like one of those games that once you've sussed it, you're kind of good to go. You will constantly be sort of like, someone will get a card and be like, what's this do? And suddenly you have to deal with that terrible rulebook again. Also, it was wildly inconsistent about like sort of how mean it was. Some players saying it was largely an economic and hand management game, and others saying, that it was the war on the map element was super mean and there was no catch-up mechanisms. So it sounds like people may still not be playing it correctly, but I've always said that a bad rule book like invest in your rule book, because a bad rule book is the worst thing you can do. If nobody can play your game correctly, it does not matter how good it is. Nobody's going to go and wade through that, especially in this day and age with so many titles coming out, to try and find a gem in the rough. You know, make it as accessible as possible. Hire content creators to make rules videos, like, you know, good content creators to do that as well. You know, the more accessible you can make the game, the more people will play it. And then if it's good, people will buy it and it will continue to profit.
I will say there is a new version of the rulebook, version 1.3, that apparently goes much of the way to fixing things. But by that point, like you say, first impressions are, you get one chance at it, and if people don't want to learn the game again, they're unlikely to keep playing it.
Yeah, and if it's just a rulebook issue, you can fix it by issuing updated versions of the rulebooks. Of course, if there was rushed iconography, graphics, people were complaining about inconsistent iconography on the cards and things. That's an issue that you can't really fix by just writing a better rulebook. So that might go some of the way, but remember, graphic design, super important as well. That's why it's good to have, you know, real artists looking at that and coming up with, not that I think Yucatan has anything to do with AI. That's a side tangent. I don't know why it was bad in that. Maybe it was a rush development or something, but people were complaining about it. That's all I know.
Fair enough. Yeah, if you've got any points about anything we say, by all means, stick them in the comments for wherever you're listening or watching, and we will have a think about what you said.
Yep, absolutely. We'll read all the comments. We will try to respond to them if we can, or if there's any questions or anything in there, we'll attempt to answer them. And if you want to set up and teach Yucatan, maybe I'll come play it. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll have a look. Of course we'll have a look.
Yeah, we're board game journalists. We'll definitely give it a try.
Are the board game journalists in the room with us now?
All right, Barry, what's in the news? What's the first thing in the news?
So a couple of things this last couple of weeks. First one for me that was most interesting is Seven Wonders Dice. So this is a new game in the Seven Wonders series to supplement Seven Wonders, the original and second edition, along with their many expansions, as well as Seven Wonders Duel and their expansions, as well as Seven Wonders Duel Middle-earth. And I think with the development of a dice game, I think we can firmly say there is a Seven Wonders family of games now, something for all levels. I don't know a huge amount about this. It is designed by Antoine Bauza again. The artist in this one is somebody that we've mentioned, or I've mentioned a number of times, Agnes Repoche. That said, look out for her to be in more things, and strength to strength. But I don't know a huge amount about the gameplay. I don't think there's a lot of information about the gameplay. We can see the back of the box and the right part of the roll and write. There are a number of different coloured dice which look to represent the coloured cards you'll get in the other versions of the game, as for what comes up. But I don't know necessarily how you're going to go around scoring points or whether the game would even actually be any good. The pad itself looks like, or gives me vibes reminiscent of Corinth. I don't know if you ever played Corinth, the roll and write.
Not a big fan of roll and write.
Market. So you had like a little man that would walk around the market and pick up resources, and then you would also collect sets of olive oil and cloth and stuff like that. So it has that kind of look to it, but it does seem to be a very different game. How abstracted from the full game they've managed to make it while still retaining the feel of Seven Wonders, I don't know, but I will keep an eye on it and have a look. It looks like it's got things like it's got a leader's dice and a city's dice and a guild's dice and everything else that's kind of added to it. Doesn't seem to be an Armada dice, so I don't know if they're going to. There's a future expansion.
What, a Tower of Babel dice?
Well, that's kind of been phased out, right? So second edition doesn't have it, but yeah, an edifice dice. That was one from me.
Right. Well, I've got a story here that's going to lead into my next one. This is the yesterday they announced the nominations for the Spiel des Jahres this year. Of course, this will be awarded at Essen in October, but you've got your 3 categories. You've got the main sort of Spiel des Jahres, which is like typically quite lightweight games. You've got the Kennerspiel des Jahres, which is the hobby level games, although still tend to be quite light, honestly. Then you've got the Kinderspiel des Jahres, which is the children's games. And so this year for the Spiel des Jahres, the main prize, they've got Krakel Orakel, which I'm not familiar with.
So you have like a slate with crackles on it, and then there's words that are flipped over, and you have to draw the word by sticking to the crackles on your board. So if you're trying to draw something, you can only follow the lines that are already there. And so trying to abstract somebody playing football, but you can only do lines and funny angles and stuff.
Yes.
It's kind of like a game of scribbles. To some degree.
There'll be an image of this on the video form of the podcast because this is quite hard to describe. But
yes.
As Barry says, you've got a board with just what looks like, somebody's just grabbed a pen and just drawn a whole ton of random dotted lines all over it. It's a whiteboard, and then you will effectively trace the lines with a dry erase marker, darkening them. And so you can't freestyle it. You've just got to try to fill it in to indicate words from a collection of words, I guess. And are you trying to get the team to guess the word or something like that? Or is it
you're trying to draw a word that nobody else is drawing. So like the harder you pick, the less likely people are to go for it. And obviously I think the fewer people that do it, the more points you get.
Right. So not unlike...
but people have to guess it as well.
So not unlike the Vlaada Chvátil game Pictomania, where, you're trying to draw stuff. And you're trying to draw... Well, anyway, I won't explain Pictomania, but it looks like if you like Pictomania, you might be interested in checking this out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Krakel Orakel. It's worth noting that you can only be in the Spiel des Jahres if your game's available in the German language, and you will be eligible the year it comes out in Germany. So these are not always contemporary releases, and on the flip side, it's possible that there's no yet English version of Krakel Orakel, and it might be called something different in English. I don't know, because that feels like a German name to me. Anyway, the next one for the Spiel des Jahres is Flip 7, which I think you know something about.
Yes, played a few games Flip 7, and I will be picking that up at the UKGE. It is a fun little card game. There's not a huge amount to it, but it fits into the kind of light party game. Doesn't overstay its welcome. You're flipping over cards. The deck's 88 cards deep. There's 12 12s, 11 11s, 10 10s. You see where I'm going with this. And what you're trying to do is, on your turn, you can hit or stick. So your score is the values in front of you, but if you ever have 2 values the same, you're bust. And so you won't score anything for that round. First to 200 points. Well, the round somebody gets 200 points, whoever has the most points wins. And there's a few extra powers within that deck of cards as well, just to keep things interesting. Something that will help you target the leader, something that will give you like an extra life, some bonus cards. There's 1-0, which breaks the rule. 12 10, 11 10, 9 8 7, and 1-0. But it's a lot of fun. You can play it with, I think, up to 8 players. Does it go as high as 8? Might even go even higher. In fact, I think you can do 2 decks of cards if you really wanted, and go more. Yeah, it's 3 to 8, but it says it plays up to 99 as long as you got enough copies of the game. I think that's a great marketing tact. Why don't you play with 100 people, but you do need to buy 20 copies. But not as much fun.
Not as much fun as the final title, which Barry would be voting for if Barry had a vote. It's Bomb Busters, which we have covered in detail on the show already, so you can go find the links to that in the descriptions of the previous episodes. Hang on. I will tell you what episodes. I'll tell you what. I'll do you that courtesy. So we've mentioned Bomb Busters in episode 27, episode 23, and episode 19, and episode 16.
Love it. It's a great game.
And episode
Maybe
13.
Maybe we'll take Bomb Busters to the Games Expo.
Episode 13, I guess we were like talking about what's coming at Essen. And then episode 16, I guess you'd got a copy of it and you were ready to play it. Yep. Episode 19, we talked about it. God, we talked about Bombbusters a lot. Episode 23, you talked about the Valentine's scenario.
Oh, yeah.
And then we mentioned it last year. And I actually got a chance to play Bombbusters. I don't think I mentioned it on the last episode because we were covering other stuff. But I got a chance to play it. I played scenario 8 and 9. 8 is the final graduation. So the first 7 are sort of tutorials building you up. 8 is your final graduation. So the first sort of, I guess what I would describe as the standard game. And then 9 is where they start introducing additional wrinkles. So we did 8 and 9. We jumped straight to 8 because we're gamers. And I had a great time. Brilliant. Yep. Could have played way more of it. The others, not so much.
You've not even scratched the surface yet with the bits that change. Like the core game's the same. The core game's always kind of the same. But just the wrinkles they throw in each scenario is just, that's fun. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, really very good. We might have mentioned it on the last episode, actually, because I think I talked about sort of, because the one sort of, not great, but the one observation to make about the game is, of course, that it limits your communication. It says you can discuss strategy, but not deductions. And so I guess I would just say, make sure that to avoid any feel bad, you have a clear idea of what that means at the table for people who are getting involved. We might all think we know what it means, but it's always good to clarify understanding. Anyway, Bombbusters, it's great. I can see why. It's there. They've also got a few other sort of recommendeds here, including Castle Combo, which we've talked about, and Agent Avenue, which we've also talked about. So more things we talked about on the show. If you care to go and find those at some point, I will briefly mention the Kinderspiel des Jahres because I think that's all a bit young for our audience here. But you've got Cascadia Junior, Le Clan de Souris, which I suppose is the clan of mice, and Top de Tort, which is a Wolfgang Warsch game, but I don't know anything about it.
Nor I. Baby games for babies. But to be fair, a lot of the time they're fun, right? You can get a lot of fun out of these sort of kids games. Like I've played a few games that my friends' kids have. You can, all right, fine, we'll play your one. And then it's like, actually, this isn't so bad.
Listen, I still play Lupin Louie and Click Clack Lumberjack, and I will not hear anyone tell me those are bad games. Because if you think those are bad games, then you've got a fundamental misunderstanding of fun. Fight me in the comments. All right. So then we've got the Kennerspiel des Jahres, which are the ones for our sort of crowd. So this starts with Looot, which I think you've played, right?
I have. It was okay. Didn't set my world alight. I could use another couple of games of it just to kind of get to grips with some of the mechanisms of controlling the bits on the map and getting what you need. I did only play it 2-player as well. It might shine a little more at higher player counts, but it's a solid game. And
I believe it's available on BGA as well if people want to give it a try.
Yep.
There we go. We've got Faraway, which has come up in our conversations before because of the art and the artists talking about the art they worked on for the game. Did you get a chance to play it?
Yeah, so I played Faraway a reasonable number of times, and I played the expansion now, which will be at the Expo, but it's also on Board Game Arena to play. The core game is... I've seen people struggle with it. So the game is you're playing 8 cards, which then score in reverse order. So you're putting out your big scorers early, then hoping to have the icons or cards to trigger them by the time it comes back to score. And the amount of people I see get this wrong is not insignificant. But the game is... I think it's good. Like, I enjoyed it when I played it the first time, and I've played it another 3-4 times with the expansion now. And I think it is a worthy game to play. You're considering what other players have, because the values on the cards dictate what order you'll get to pick draft, like the next cards. You care about the values on the cards because when the number ascends, you get a little bonus. And so at what point do you stop ascending to reset to get... Because you can't... Well, I mean, you could, but it's very difficult to just get a pure ascension game. And if nothing else, those big numbers require more cards to trigger, so you have to play them earlier in the game. So there's a lot going on to think about, and it plays pretty snappily. The good thing about Board Game Arena, of course, is it does the math for you at the end, but otherwise it has a score pad, which is a signal of a good game.
So on the scale of, zero endgame maths to fantasy realms, where is it on the scale?
Oh, right. Yeah. It's castle combo level. It's each card you have to figure out individually. There's nothing abstract to it. Like, it's always add these up.
Mm-hmm.
Never multiplication.
And the final game here in the Kenner Spiel des Jahres, which I think is probably the most complex game on all the lists here as well, is Endeavor Deep Sea, which we reviewed way back when we came back from Essen. So we covered Endeavor Deep Sea on our 2024 standouts. So this was the best of 2023 episode 19. And we talked about some of our standouts from 2024 as part of that. And Endeavor Deep Sea featured there because we'd both been playing it. I did receive a review copy from the Grand Gamers Guild, so just to be transparent about that. But it is, I do own the original Endeavor as well. But yeah, I enjoy it, and I'm not totally surprised to see it here, although a little surprised because I do think it's a little heavier than what I would normally expect to see on this list.
Yeah, I mean, the Kenner Spiel can be... I've seen heavier games as well, to be fair, but yeah, it mostly tends towards sort of those first two, I would say, on the list. But it's not as if Endeavor Deep Sea is a super in-depth game. But there is there's enough going on there.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so that's excited to see Endeavor Deep Sea nominated. And that is your Spiel des Jahres nominations for 2025. So we'll be excited to find out later in the year what actually wins that. But of course, the Grand Gamers Guild were very keen to email me and let me know that they had been nominated and that they've got a new expansion coming out for the game in June, coming to Kickstarter. It's called Uncharted Waters. And it includes 4 new scenarios for the game. If you know anything about the game, it is a scenario-driven game where it's got some base mechanics, and then this will mechanisms, and this will add more mechanisms in. They are exploring the concept of the tectonic split, which will divide the sea in two, and also fog, which blankets the surface in mysterious mist, which is funny because I don't recall you ever going on the surface in this game.
I mean, you start on the surface usually.
Well, I guess on the very top of the water, sure, but you don't do anything there.
No.
Anyway, so we'll see what that's all about. We've also got new ocean boards, so new variability for the standard game for the setup. You've got some mini expansion ocean boards. These are going to have some like little specialized mechanisms and things within the boards themselves, some extra components and stuff to make that to add a little more complexity, I guess. More journals, which are cards you get in the game that have effects and powers. Think of it like an event deck, basically. So some more variability there. And of course, dive tokens are resources you collect from under the water. And there's going to be more dive tokens for more variability. So new scenarios and variability in almost every mechanism that provides it. And also more. There's more, but they didn't say what it was yet. So you'll have to check out the Kickstarter campaign for that. That'll be a chance to get that deluxe edition as well, if you didn't get it the first time around.
Although I'm not sure entirely what the difference between the retail and deluxe version is, but
I don't know.
I mean,
either. I think there's wooden bits in the deluxe edition. I've only got the retail, but I don't know for sure what the differences are.
Yeah, definitely. I'll back this. I've played it just it looked like 12 times. I've actually not played all the scenarios yet. And every time we've played it, it's been... people have enjoyed it, right? It's not necessarily been the most... this is the best game I've ever played, but everybody's been like, yeah, that was really good. Can't wait to play it again. So, as far as a game is concerned, that's... you can't ask for too much of a higher praise than you want to play it again, even if that's at some indeterminate point in the future.
Yep, I agree with that. It's like, it has so far, in our experience, proven to be a consistently, solidly good experience. It's a really solid, and what I mean is it's consistently good. Like sometimes you can set up a game and you're like, this has been really good in the past, and you try a new scenario and it's not good. So Endeavor is consistent, which is really good. Consistently enjoyable. So this is designed by Carl de Visser and Jarrett Gray, who are also the designers of the Endeavor Age of Sail. And the art is by Fahed Al-Rajil. Al-Rajil. Fahed Al-Rajil, who's also done Fall of the Mountain King, How to Save a World. Fall of the Mountain King and How to Save a World. Good. Yes. Now you spotted something that I'm really interested in.
And not just because it's trains, but because it is Lightning Train.
Neither of those things. I'm excited because it's Paul Denon and bag building.
Oh, right. My mistake.
But people at home might be excited about trains.
We know a bunch of train nerds, so
the overlap so this is almost 100%.
Venn diagram's a circle. This is a new game involving trains, right? But that's, like you say, it's not the crux of why it's kind of important. This is designed by Paul Denon, who's behind Dune Imperium and Clank. So two very well regarded games. It's published by Direwolf, so you can expect it to be pretty good quality when you receive it. And this is a bag building game of building train routes on, I presume it's fictional. I don't know definitively. Could be somewhere in the US. It looks like it might be US from the map.
The map looks like it's the US.
Yeah.
But the territories are all
wrong. The 8 regions of North America. There you go. Fine. So you're looking to open stations and complete train lines across the 8 regions of North America. Can you make the most money? Or can you block other people, which is really the most fun part of games, train building games. It doesn't matter if you win, as long as you made somebody else miserable when they were like, I was going to do that on my turn. And as for the fantastical element of lightning powered trains, who knows what they might do with that, but it looks like there's a bunch of powers you can have on your train that do different things. So I'll be very interested to see how that all comes together. And I do enjoy route building train game.
Yep, and I like when there's argy-bargy on a board, and I like bag building. Paul Denon, of course, famous for deck building, so I'll be interested to see how he turns his hand to bag building as well. I noticed that they haven't credited an artist yet on BGG, so they should do that.
No, the illustration is done by Raul Ramos.
Great, good. Well, at least you've got the credit from somewhere.
Yeah, but that looks cool.
Yeah, it looks cool. I like what I see here. It's supposed to be sort of like looks like it's sort of middleweight. It says an hour to 2 hours, 1 to 4 players. Bag builder, great. I'm interested. Speaking of trains, Barry, do you know about the future of trains?
Is it planes?
No, it's tiny little train pieces that you have to put passengers in and then move them along acrylic tiles. I do, of course, speak of the incredibly overproduced Maglev Metro. Have you played it?
Nope. And I have seen it, but I've not really got to grips with it, so I couldn't tell you anything about it.
So I've played it. I've played Maglev Metro. So this is designed by Ted Alspach, who people will know from his incredibly diverse catalog designing Suburbia and One Night Ultimate Werewolf. And it is art by Alana Kelsey, who is the in-house graphic designer at Bezier Games, and also Olin Tim, who's a freelance illustrator who worked on a lot of Bezier games like Castles of Mad King Ludwig, Suburbia, Colony, and some non-Bezier stuff like Favor the Pharaoh. Anyway, published by Bezier Games, who have done most of Ted Alspach's games. And this is a new Kickstarter for 6 new maps for Maglev Metro. Maglev Metro was originally released in 2021. And it is a really sort of strange game of route building and I guess point-to-point delivery, for want of a better term. I generally don't like pick up and deliver, if that's the same as point-to-point delivery, which typically it is, I guess. This one is sort of, I mean, it's a huge, so you get a series of acrylic tiles with corners and straights, so they're not something you'll be unfamiliar with if you've played, for example, Railways of the World or Age of Steam or anything that has you putting out route tiles. But in this game, they are transparent and acrylic and in your player color. So you've got your own routes that you're putting out. And you're trying to connect up stations on a board, and then passengers will appear at the different stations and you'll carry them off and deliver them somewhere else for profits. And so it's unfortunate that I did play this when I received it, which was 4 years ago, and I haven't had too much time to refresh myself on the rules. But what I can say is that I remember my impression at the time being, this is really interesting. I'm not sure if it's interesting enough to justify the rules overhead. Right. Now, to be fair, there is already so many maps for Maglev Metro. Each one offers sort of like mechanical expansion. So like you play the map and it's the core game plus some, mechanical wrinkle. And so you've got a lot of variability there. And it's almost like scenarios, right? Like the scenarios in Endeavor or something like that. But you've also got this board of like robots, and the robots are like running the train, and you have to like collect them to upgrade the board, and then you sort of get asymmetrical. It's not asymmetrical because everyone's got the same board, but as you collect the different robots, you'll sort of unlock different powers and things. And I thought, it's not like I would play it again. I'd happily get it out, but also I don't know anyone that's wildly excited about it, and no one else has ever suggested it. I have to bring it to the table and teach it. So I don't know why it sort of flew under the radar so much, in the sense that whatever I see the Kickstarters for it, maybe this is just their marketing, but it looks like a big sort of project, and they're like, it's, this train game from Ted Alspach, who's designed some beloved classics. Why so little interest? But it's a bit of an oddity. I don't know if I would be very reticent to go in on like a whole collection, which is kind of a bummer because their Kickstarter is specifically 6 new maps, which is 6 more sort of scenarios with some unique and weird, quirky wrinkle. I've only played it like one time since I received it, and although I'd be happy to play it again, the thought of sort of teaching it and guiding people through it, because it's also not super intuitive how to do well at it. So anyway, I think it's very interesting. The production is amazing. You've got these little plastic and metal trains. They're metal bases with little plastic sides in your player color, and they ride along the tracks, and they pick up passengers at the station. And so you put the little meeples from the stations into the trains, and you often have to make decisions about like capacity and how many people. You can't always hold all the people because the capacity of the trains will depend on your upgrade board. And so like, do you get more trains or do you get higher capacity trains? And that's the kind of, crunchy logistics that you're going to be assessing during this game. So interesting stuff. Gorgeous production. Looks amazing. No real fault there. Looks fantastic, but just I don't know, a bit quirky and a bit weird. So I don't think I'll be backing this new campaign. It's unlikely. I don't need any more scenarios for this, but it has reminded me to maybe try and get it to the table once more.
Yep. Well, if you want a train audience, Expo's a prime time to get things played. I've never played the game, but it's fairly well reviewed. Weight wise, 2.81 out of 5. It seems like in the middle, anybody can kind of pick it up and play. But maybe it's deceptively light for what it ends up looking like.
Well, it's, those, the sort of, weight. It's like we've talked about this before. What is it? So yeah, maybe. So I think in this case, it's about intuitiveness, and sort of
yeah.
Like there's a lot of sort of things that you have to be conscientious of and things like that. So I'm surprised it's as low as 2.8, to be fair. I mean, it is definitely middleweight. Once you're playing it, it feels middleweight. But it's just that amount of buy-in to get there,
I'll throw one in very, very briefly. I see that the sequel, or maybe not sequel, but the follow-up to Revive.
I saw that had been announced, yeah.
Yeah, German Bone and Rhys Keefe have been announced. Not a lot of information on it. We know it's called Recall, and it looks to be a civilization exploring type game, where you're one of 14 unique tribes with 18 unique gadgets. So a lot of variability in it to set up and play your civilization out. So that could be interesting. Revive was very well received. And this follow-up's very much anticipated.
Did you play Revive?
I've not. I want to play it. Don't know anybody that's got it.
I played it. I got a friend of mine picked it up at the Essen when it came out, so we played it following Essen. At 2 players. It's good. Revive is definitely good. If you like managing systems to produce cool sort of action chaining combos, Revive's got your back. It's like you've got this little player board and you're getting these like workers, which are cards. They're like characters that are going to be part of your tribe. So the premise is ice covers everything. You're coming out of like the crater at the center of the earth where everyone's been hiding, and now you're repopulating the sort of icy wasteland. And you've got this machine that's your player board, and I guess it represents all of the things, the tools that you're using to survive and regenerate the land. And you've got these cards that are your characters, and they have, and I'm doing this off the top of my dome, I don't know when Revive came out, but it must have been a fair few years ago, and I only played it the once. But you've got these cards that you basically tuck into your player board to like upgrade your actions, but they've got like sort of different icons around the outside, and based on where you tuck them, you will upgrade different actions. And then the actions are sort of linked on your board by like a diagram, and as you take the actions, you'll sort of trigger these different effects off of them. And then eventually you'll have to take like a recharge turn where you get all your tokens back on your player board. It's something like that. Anyway, the general vibe is, and you've got all these tracks and things that you can go up. You're sort of exploring the map. You're putting out tokens, and then I remember there's alien artifacts everywhere. Some of them are on the map. Some of them are on tracks. But as you sort of pursue the different avenues of the game, you'll unlock these alien artifacts. And there's also end game scoring objectives that are personalizable, so you can sort of engage in these different objectives that you want to be doing as well. I can't remember if you're just given them at the start actually, or if you take them from a market or something, but everyone can have their own sort of objectives and secret objectives and things. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but it kind of like it fell into the category of I don't feel the need to own it, and I wouldn't bring it to the table. But that's mainly because I'm just not that into action chaining and combo chaining. Like with people who really like that stuff, I like to do it. But I find I'm not generally motivated to bring that stuff to the table. So that's why it didn't actually make its way into my collection. But, it's very, very good. And I think if you like that sort of thing, if you like, I'm thinking about Teletum, as a recent example, but that's not even that recent. But Teletum was action chaining, wasn't it? That sort of thing. Yep. If you like that sort of stuff, you're going to like this a lot. Sounds it's a good example.
My kind of thing. I'll issue an immediate correction to myself. There's no alternate names for Recall yet, so my eye went to the second row, but really it should have went to the top row. The artists are German Bone and Rhys Keefe, and the designers are a foursome of Helga Meissner, Christian Amund Utsby, Kjetil Svensson, and Anna Vermland. And they were the same 4 people that did Revive.
Yep, and also we know Christian Edmundson Osby and Elif Svensson are the designers of Santa Maria and Saltfjord. Thank you. Yep. So there we go. So yeah, if Recall is going to be an Essen release, I'll definitely be keen to check it out. I wonder if it will again be. I mean, I wonder if it says 90 minutes. I don't know what it says for Revive. I'm just trying to get a sense of what kind of weight, if they're anticipating this to be heavier or lighter. So they put 90 minutes to 2 hours for Revive. So maybe they're thinking about a slightly lighter weight game. Oh, look at that. Revive broke the top 100. It's 93. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's been very popular, but I just don't know anybody that has it. Expo. Play it at Expo.
Yep. Well, I'd happily play that again, for sure. Although don't expect me to teach it, because I can't remember it that well. Oh yeah, I'm looking at the player boards now, and when I was talking about like the linking, I was like, did it have linking? Was that this game? And I'm looking at the player board, I'm like, oh yeah, it's got linking.
Yeah.
And tracks for days. Look at all those tracks. All right, good stuff. So let's move on to...
All right, then into the quickfire roundup. Now, I just so happened to have played a whole bunch of games these last couple of weeks. Checked out, or I went down to the new Drafts, which is a board game cafe chain here in London. They've got a new one out in Stratford, and played a bunch of games there, a bunch of games online, and I'll tell you, where and when I played them. So in no particular order, but probably roughly the order I played them in, games I've played has been Clans of Caledonia. This is 1 play out of 7 total, and it is still a good game. The expansion, the Kickstarter based or crowdfunding based expansion should be delivering soon, and we wanted to get another game in before we introduced trains into the Clans of Caledonia. Had a great time. Game was pretty close overall, and it's a lot of fun. Highly recommended.
And if you're interested in finding out more about Clans of Caledonia, we did a full series on it when it delivered. Those videos are going to be really old, but I'm sure they'll still be good. The technology was more rudimentary back then. My technology.
Filmed on a potato.
Edited on a tiny Mac. Do you remember the paper thin ones that came out in 2012?
Vaguely.
Yeah. Basically a tablet.
Yeah.
We did what we could. Anyway.
This is not this quick fire as I hoped, but more quick. I get you. So after playing Clans Caledonia, we played a game of Papayoo just to round out the evening. I played Papayoo 83 times. I still think this is one of the most fun trick-taking games. It is really just the classic card game Hearts with an extra suit that's worth points, and you don't want points. But the look of disappointment on somebody's face when they have to pick up 50 points after playing a 2 of a suit that they thought was safe is fun. It's probably not as much fun if you take it as seriously as Hearts players, but otherwise it is just a good laugh. Not on a 2, and then everybody has to pick up, and it's hilarious. Then I've managed to play a small campaign game, and you know how I feel about campaign games, but this is Marvel Champions. So this is the entire Shield campaign, which is 5 scenarios out of the 72 scenarios that I've played. And I would say the campaign is one of the most balanced and interesting out of all the scenarios they've released. However, every mission, the first 3 missions really dragged. We play 4-player for the campaigns, and the amount of time it takes scales linearly with the amount of players that you have. So it has dragged a little bit. It took us all day to do 3 scenarios, but then it only took us an evening to do the remaining 2. The campaign's interesting because it's a tough start with lots of different ways to spend your cards, which doesn't exist in every scenario. But then the flow of the game is such that once you're set up, it is an inevitable but perhaps slow end to the game. You will win once you're set up, but it just makes it slower to get set up. So is it more interesting? I don't know. It felt like something different. I recommend it if you are a Marvel Champions player. Then we played a game, and I've played it again since. That's Pagan, Fate of Roanoke. I can't remember if we spoke about it before on a previous podcast. I think you might have brought it back.
I think I mentioned it when I first played it.
Yeah. Well, I've played that 3 times now. Once with you on Board Game Arena, another couple of times in real life. Oh, actually, I played it 4 times. What am I saying? Played it twice on Board Game Arena and twice in real life. And I need to get a little deeper with this. I've won as both the Hunter and the Witch, but it's hard to say exactly how balanced it is, as we're all kind of, relatively new players. I lost my game to you, I think. It has the deck construction element, which you don't have from just the core set. It could be interesting, but maybe I don't know. I don't know what those other cards look like. I'd be interested in the flow of a game with a what you might consider a top tier deck.
Yep. So I played this in episode 11. I talked about this.
Whoa.
So way back when. I've since been to Essen, where they had the Wormgold, the publisher from Denmark, were there, and they had all the stuff for sale. So I bought a bunch more stuff for it because I like you. I enjoyed the premise and I thought it was interesting. Our game lasted way too long. The first game of it we played, and I think that's possibly, I can't remember why. I think it's possibly because, so not our game, not the game you and I played, but my very first physical game. Possibly we maybe didn't use a scenario card, and you're supposed to use a scenario card every time you play. And at least until you get into the deck construction. I don't know. Maybe you keep using them in that, maybe you don't. But at least if you're using those core decks, you pick a scenario card to go along with it. And what I've noticed about the scenario cards is they all seem to escalate the power of the game. So inevitably, the scenarios are actually shorter if you played without them. So I wouldn't recommend playing without them. They only improve it anyway. I played it with you, and then I enjoyed our game on BGA so much, I went and I played it again in real life. And I really enjoyed that. Now, in those 2 games, I was playing as the Witch. I do think I probably enjoy the Witch role more. I just like being the sneaky one that has the information and is being sneaky. But I did enjoy playing as the Hunter at least enough that I would be keen to try it some more, and also to explore, the deck construction. Because, it's kind of mimicking these deck construction competitive games like Netrunner and things like that. But also, like, you can't have a meta because it's just a board game with 2 people, so unless you're playing all the time or people are starting to play it could fit into being a competitive game, right? Like you could have a Pagan Fate of Roanoke tournament, but it's not doing that. Like Wormgold are not doing competitive play. There's no meta. They're not publishing decks and things for people to mirror and use. There might be some stuff in the rule books, I don't know. But like I said, I haven't looked at the extra content. It feels like they're trying to move it into dueling board game space. So rather than competitive tournament space. So, I don't know how deck construction would work.
It could be an evolving 2-player meta. Is something that could happen out of that.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to commit to playing some more of this and come back to you on it because I've got way more cards.
I might pick up some at the Games Expo to experience a bit of deck building.
Are Wormgold there? So they're not on the list. So we'll have to see if they're there or not. But either way, they also have a web store online, and the stuff is not that hard to find in the wild. At least the big box expansion called Beyond the Palisades. The little card packs are a little more difficult to find, I think.
But back into the Roundup. So another game played a couple of times, and that's Castle Combo. Played it twice out of the 26 times total. Castle Combo is still a lot of fun. You mentioned that kind of came up just a little short for the Spiel des Jahres, and that makes sense. It's a lot of fun to play. The more games that we play, though, you kind of know what the cards could be. You kind of know what you're looking for. I did some theory crafting. I think the highest score I could get was something like 147. Nobody's ever had a score near that. 110s is kind of the absolute cap. But you kind of learn to see, well, actually, there is a little bit of luck in this game for what you're going for, but you just have to roll with the punches. Your decisions are tactical. You can't necessarily just go in with one plan that's going to see you to the end. It all depends what comes up, and it's still it's fun every time, even if you lose. But it's better to win. Then on Board Game Arena, I played a game of Four Gardens, which was fine. It is a game of contract fulfillment where your contracts are unique to you, and you're building up a tableau of paintings that go out in a specific order. But the part of the resource gathering is a 4-tiered pagoda where you rotate it before gathering resources from the top or bottom, depending on the card that you've played, and you've only got a certain amount of storage space before you then complete your contracts to fill in your painting. It is fine, but I wouldn't want to play it in real life. It will be a little bit of a pain to maneuver that pagoda in the middle, but the toy component would be quite high. Like the toy factor for the game would be quite high, and it probably got a pretty good table presence for that cardboard pagoda in the middle. It was okay. Then I played Faraway and the expansion, so I was looking forward to the expansion at Expo. It showed up on Board Game Arena, and so I thought, well, perfect opportunity. So I've played that 4 times with the expansion versus the additional 5 times I played it without. Still fun. I think, if you don't have players who know that giving away 20 or 24 points for somebody to get 5 blues is good, then you're not going to have quite as much fun trying to hate draft against that one player when nobody else is paying attention to it. But that's the players balancing part of the game more than the game being a problem. And the expansion adds new cards that are above the original number 70 that fit in fine. Like, there's nothing massively game changing about them. They make sense, they do their own thing. It is just a little more of what you had, and gives you a little bit more variety for what you see. I found all the cards above 70 that I drafted and played were fun enough. So I think the expansion, if you like Faraway, you will almost certainly like the expansion. Played one game of Stonespire Architects on Board Game Arena. Now I've played that in real life and online. 7 games of that. It's pleasant enough. Played a 2-player game. The drafting in a 2-player game is you pick one and you discard one. So you can hate draft doubly fast, twice as much in this game. And Stonespire Architects is just putting down cards in your dungeon with certain traits that score you points. It is fun. It's set in the world of Role Player, which also has a couple other games like Cartographers and Role Player and something else that I forget. It's enjoyable. I don't know if it's my favourite drafting game, but worth a play, particularly on Board Game Arena. Very fast. Do I leave this one to the end? No, I'll just say it. So The Fate of the Fellowship, the new Lord of the Rings pandemic system game. I've played that on Board Game Arena. I believe some people are getting their physical copies, and there should be some physical copies available to buy at the Expo. I've played it 5 times, once co-op, 4 times just myself. I think I may end up being the dissenting opinion on this one, but it is not fun. Pandemic is not a multiplayer game, right? I might play Pandemic myself. I would never want to play Pandemic as a co-op. There's not enough decision space. You're either arguing about, well, this is the best thing to do, and either you see that or you're an idiot. And so I'm not saying a quarterback. I'm just saying do what I say. So anyway, I played it, and this was a new game. It's possibly the most different of the pandemic games, perhaps including Rome, Cthulhu, World of Warcraft, and even Clone Wars. I do have some fun with Pandemic Clone Wars, out of all the pandemic games, but this one did not change my mind. I eventually won after my 4th play on the easiest difficulty. Random characters. There's only limited. I think you only get the same 4 objectives on Board Game Arena every time. And the game came down to me with Frodo and Aragorn in this one. sitting on Mount Doom for 4 turns, just waiting to draw a ring card. Now, I could have lost within those 4 turns. It's certainly possible that the forces of Mordor spread out, took over my havens, and made me lose enough hope that I would have lost. But I couldn't have changed that. There was nothing, and you could argue that I could have made different choices, so I had all 5 of the rings going into the turn where I got to Mount Doom. Sure, but as a solo play, you have to spend some of the cards to do some things, and you have a limited opportunity to convert them into ring tokens because it has to be in a specific area, and you're maybe just not in that area with that character, and nobody can help you get through it. It just wasn't... my previous games had also ended from not drawing the cards that I needed, whether that's a movement card, whether that's an attack card, and it just felt like there was nothing I really could have done differently. I might next week go into more discussions about Fate of the Fellowship, but if you find people gushing over it, if you don't like Pandemic, you're not going to like this. But also, if you do like Pandemic, you might not like this. It's more different than any of the previous different ones.
So you're playing this on BGA, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we'll have to see if we can find some time for a game and see how it is.
I'd rather not. But we'll see. If we're going to talk about it again,
if we're not going to talk about it again, then we won't bother.
No, I guess we have to. It's going to be a big game. It will start. People are starting to receive it. People are going to pick it up at the expo. There's going to be some out in the wild. I think next podcast we'll talk about it a little more in depth.
Sure thing.
Then at Board Game Cafe, played Kluster. If you've not played Kluster, you put a bit of string out, you got some magnets, and you take turns.
That's what that is.
Yeah, putting magnets down.
I've seen this.
2 magnets clap together, then you have to pick them up. And so it's the player who gets rid of all their magnets first. It is what it is. It's fun enough. Kluster Duo was a game they came out with that was a 2-player only version of Kluster. Now, I've only ever played Kluster at 2-player. But Kluster Duo, I was like, why does this game exist? So I'll give it a try. Opening the box, there were shotgun shell sized magnets in it. Like, it was huge, right? These magnets are massive and they are career ending. They are neodymium. They will crush your fingers in between if you're unfortunate enough to place your magnet in the wrong place. It is absolute nightmare fuel, right? This game is both incalculable as to where you can put your magnet down where it'll be safe, and incredibly dangerous. The magnets never stop moving on the table, right? So we've made the biggest string circle kind of possible. Once you've got 3 magnets in there, they are in constant danger. They are swaying back and forth. They're shaped like, I don't really know what would be the word to describe it, but like conical, double-edged conicals.
Mm-hmm.
Put a picture up. People can see it. And so they're always rotating, they're always swaying and swiveling and turning. And even taking your hand near the play area to put your magnet down, they all turn and look at you. And you're just like, if I put this down, I'm not getting my fingers back. And so played 1 game of that, and that was enough. Had to put it away. It was too...
So, like, I'm not a masochist or anything, but I think that sounds great. It sounds like so much fun. I like the idea of like personal injury making the game more difficult.
If you get a chance to play it, give it a try. But maybe use tongs or something to put them down. It is scary stuff. So after that, the high tension Kluster Duo. We played Funghi, which is a re-implementation, well, maybe just a reskin of Morels, the mushroom picking game. Out of all the games I've ever played, it was one of them. It was a very sedate affair. There was not a lot going on. The drafting wasn't terribly interesting. you're cooking mushrooms. You've got to collect sets of mushrooms, put them in a pan. Maybe you get some butter or apple cider vinegar to jazz it up a little bit. And then you score points for the mushrooms that you've cooked. It is a game. It's just not one I want to return to anytime soon.
There you go.
Then speaking of variants of games, played Qwirkle Cubes, and this is just a version of Qwirkle where you can roll different icons at the start of your turn before placing your cubes down. It's strictly worse than Qwirkle. Not only does it take longer because now you're looking for the possibilities that you might roll into on your turn. I guess actually we should have just done it so you rolled at the end of your turn. But then you get new cubes and you got to roll anyway. You could probably get a reroll. It's strictly worse than Qwirkle. Play Qwirkle. Qwirkle's great. Then we went back to some fun favourites. Played Boop, the cat abstract game where if you put a cat down next to another cat, it boops it. Get 3 kittens in a row, you get cats. Get 3 cats in a row, you win a game. Otherwise, you're just moving your pieces and your opponent's pieces around the board, trying to get 3 in a row. Fun, lightweight, 2-player abstract game, but very cute theme. I've not played Boop the Halls. I do own Boop, which is the spooky ghost version.
Yeah, Boop. You can
Boop
put that on your
adds a little-
shelf next to Loot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How many O's in the middle? We'll find a double O shelf, double O plus shelf.
That's my new board game collection. Only more than 3 O's.
3 O's in a row. And then played Double Disney. So that's Spot It in some territories, but Disney, the 100th year anniversary. I've played Double before, like I think everybody's maybe seen some sort of version of Double. Double Disney was harder than you might think. It's like, where's that? None of these match. But played through. It was really close. It came down to the last card, which I won by spotting, I think, red from turning red. But there's like 5 different games now you can play with the double cards, the spot it cards. It can be played by anybody. It's just Snap, but with more things to look for.
I feel like Double Disney could contain almost every conceivable IP now.
Yeah, I mean, they could easily add in different ones, but of course, every card on Double has a pair on every other card on Double. And so there is a limit to how many you can fit on a single card.
Yeah, but I mean, is
Yes.
it Double like sort of Disney IP, or is there like Star
Pixar,
Wars or Marvel?
Disney. No, it was just
Pixar as
Disney
well.
100-year celebration. So
Right.
everything from like Snow White up to I think maybe Turning Red was the last one on there. But you know, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse.
So the more Disney.
Yeah, definitely.
Got it.
And then we mentioned it earlier, but I finally played Flip 7. I've seen it around. I never really thought about it much. Had a game, and actually, yeah, it's a lot of fun because it's sort of Papayoo level. You're just flipping cards, trying to get the highest score without going bust by hitting a double. The higher values have more duplicates, and so there's your risk reward, push your luck. Doesn't overstay its welcome. Good time, as long as you like, you know, having fun as your friends suffer from not scoring any points that round. You'll have a great time with this, and I think I'll pick it up at the expo. Another variants game, this time was My Shelfie, the dice game. So Mike, we played My Shelfie a fair chunk of time ago.
Yep.
And I have played it since on Board Game Arena, but I played a couple of games of My Shelfie dice game, and much like Qwirkle Cubes, it is just worse than My Shelfie or Yahtzee, which uses the same mechanisms of the 2 rerolls to do so. It's still fun for 5 minutes. It doesn't take more than 5 minutes on Board Game Arena, but basically you roll your dice, you try to get a certain number of the same icon, and then cross that off your shelf. But there's no other variations. It's only duplicate icons that you're looking for. So there's no full house like you would get in Yahtzee. There's no straight like you would get in Yahtzee. So it's a worse version of both My Shelfie and Yahtzee. Yeah, it is a game. You might play it. played a game called Quibbles. Don't know if anybody's seen it. Quibbles is on Board Game Arena, and it's like it looks like another family weight type quick game. In it, you can discard a card. There's the cards valued 1 through 6. You discard a card of a single value to pick up any cards that add up to that value. So if you discard a 5, you could pick up a 1 and a 4, and a 3 and a 2. Makes sense? Or you can discard a 3 and a 2 to pick up a 5. And you're looking to play sets of numbers into your play area. So you need 5 5s to play, 6 6s, 4 4s, 3 3s to play into your play area. And then we're first to 21 points. It's awful. Don't play it. Don't know why it exists.
The art's cute. The quibbles
the art was
cute.
The art kind of got me. It's like, oh yeah, this could be fun. It was not.
The quibbles are very cute. I'll just look at it. I'll just look at it. I don't need to play it.
You look at the art and you get everything you're going to get from that game. Played Vampire Rivals, which we spoke about in the last podcast, kind of in passing. This is a game, a competitive sort of collectible card, not collectible card game, but like an expandable card game that has been discontinued. I picked up all the sets and finally got it to the table. We played 3 games. There's a lot of upfront learning for any of these sort of lifestyle card games, expandable card games, but it wasn't terrible once we got down to playing it. Worth a few more games to get more familiar with it, and so we can actually understand some of the strategies and what goes into it. And in fact, we're playing again tomorrow night. So it's different enough from other card games in that it's 4-player. You've got your rival, so if you knock them out, you win. But the game will end as soon as any player is knocked out and whoever's got the most points. But every deck has its own way of gaining points, and that's what makes it interesting. We played 3 games, and every faction was interesting and trying to do their own thing. So the variety isn't there, and hopefully people get interested enough that it becomes something we can play a bit more regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the game I have most played since the last couple of weeks is a new game on Board Game Arena called The Hanging Gardens, and I have played it 72 times. It falls into an area which I would put Seven Wonders Architects, if you played that. Did I mention Architects as part of the Seven Wonders family? Don't think I did. But it's quite lightweight. You have a pyramid 5-4-3. You are drafting tiles which do different things, and you're scoring points based on the position of them, the types of tiles, the grouping of the flowers on those tiles. There's 3 different colours, and your personal objective cards. A variety of ways to score points is very solid in that sense. Playing it multiplayer is fun. You're looking just to beat your opponent. Most of my games were solo. There are solo difficulty levels where the aim of the game is to score 66 points. And so easy, medium and advanced. Had a couple of duff games just getting to grips with it. But I beat all 3 of those difficulties in the first 6 games that I played. No problem. It took me 62 games to beat the expert mode, getting more than 66 points. The amount of times I had 62, 63, 64 was a lot. But having played the game so much, I can now see where the luck comes into it. Like when you don't get any resources, which is how it scales the difficulty, it is very difficult to score highly. And you're just left with what you can get at the bottom of the pile, and that's where the luck gets involved. Now in multiplayer you do start with a few more resources, and at the lower difficulty levels you start with more resources. There is a game there, and it is quite fun. The other thing about playing solo is that the automa is laser targeted to whatever tile you're wanting to pick next, and I don't know how it does it. It also scores the objectives from turn 1, which is not possible for the human player. And it got so bad that I stopped thinking about what tile I wanted to take next because I was convinced it was reading my mind. Like anytime I was like, right, I'll get that next and then I'll score this. No, never, not once. It would always go to that slot and it would always get rid of the tile I wanted. And I'm like, how is it doing this? I was raging. But the game itself is quite fun multiplayer. I don't think it's got... If you like Seven Wonders Architects, you'll probably like this. It is a very, very, very small step up, I would say. I don't like Seven Wonders Architects, so make from that what you will.
So wait a minute. You like the Hanging Gardens solo, but not multiplayer.
Other way around. I would never play it solo again now that I've beaten it.
Right, but what I mean is you played it like 60 times solo, so you must have liked that.
I hate played it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm
Just to be clear, Barry played it 60 times because he hated it. Correct. That's important to understand.
It is. I just wanted to say that I'd beaten Expert. And I was like, all it would take is one lucky chain of events, and eventually I got it. But that's my point. It is luck, right?
Right, yeah.
There are some things you can do to improve your chances, but it's not as I don't feel like I was significantly better at the game after my 66th solo play on Expert than I was on my first solo play on Expert. Mm-hmm. It was pure luck, and that's why I'm like, well, I couldn't repeat it necessarily. It's not like I've now come up with a system.
I understand.
Yeah,
there we go.
At least with multiplayer, you get additional resources to start, and you can keep them topped up, and you have more choice. And so the multiplayer game's fine. It's just a little bit. Luck will still come into it to a degree, but not to the same extent.
Yeah, but I mean, Seven Wonders Architects comes with those really pleasing plastic containers to hold all the civilizations. Did you get anything pleasing like that in Hanging Gardens?
Well, not on Board Game Arena, so I couldn't tell you.
I don't think you probably do. So I don't know.
No, go for it. Then I like deduction games, and one game I was going to pick up at the expo is Digit Code. This is a game out of Japan, but it's on Board Game Arena, so I thought I'll give that a try. It is not as fun as Break the Code, which is very similar to. In this game, you're guessing digits on a digital clock face, like a 3x2 digital clock face, and all you can ask is how many. The questions you ask are to do with the numbers and the number of segments that are filled in within a column. However, each number is 3 columns and 3 rows. So you might ask how many segments are filled in on the top row, and they'll say, the person you're guessing will say 2. But then you have to figure out, well, what number is that? Is it an 8, a 6, a 5, a 2, a 7? And so you're trying to work out all these things. You can ask whether it's even or odd. You can ask whether the number next to it is greater or less than. But you have to ask a much, much larger number of questions to get to a verifiable answer than you do in Break the Code, which lets you make a number of deductions, which is what I was hoping this would be, to get to the answer, and therefore it wasn't as fun. I do want to play it again to see if my first impressions are correct, but it is not. It doesn't seem like a proper deduction game necessarily. There are a number of deductions to be made, but you have to ask so many more questions to narrow down the possibilities that it's not as fun. That makes sense?
Yep.
Played a couple of games of Russian Railroads or Ultimate Railroads on Board Game Arena. And I've played this in real life, and it is still a very fun worker placement game. And of course, trains. What's not to like? I own Ultimate Railroads. I would happily play it anytime, and I enjoy the expansions and the alternate maps and stuff from it. Another game I've played 1 or 2 times on Board Game Arena is Piraten Kapern. So this game is not available in the UK, but you can import it from Amazon or whatever. It's a very small box game, dice chucker. You try to collect sets of treasure or diamonds or swords or whatever based on a card that's flipped over. And I just played that once, but that is 1 out of 470 games which I've played in both real life and on Board Game Arena. It's not even really a good game, right? I can't defend it necessarily. You're getting points, first to 6,000 wins. I don't know why I've played it 470 times. It's just the go-to end of the evening. Let's just play a quick Pirates. Fine.
Didn't we play this?
Probably.
Yeah, isn't it like you have to keep rolling the dice, but then if you get like 5 monkeys, you explode or something?
So if you get 3 skulls, that's the end of your turn. You may get, and then the points you score are based on getting sets of 3 or higher, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the card that you flip over could give you double points, or it could give you...
I remember playing this. Yeah, this is absolutely
it's
random.
nonsense.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
Yeah,
okay.
Right? But it's the end. It's the end of the game. End of night game.
When you really don't want to think about anything at all.
Yeah. Then I had a couple of games of Sushi Go Party. Still a good game. Great light drafting game. Cute theme. Interesting decisions. If you've got the party version, I'm very annoyed that the new version of Sushi Go, the 10th anniversary, can't be incorporated into Sushi Go Party. So there's a few unique cards in there that you can't play with. But basically, you draft a bit of wasabi and a sushi to go on top of it and double your points. You know, like you draft 2 dumplings to start your set collection. You draft 3 sashimis to get points. It's just a very basic point set collection drafting game, and thoroughly recommended. And then a new one that I seen on Board Game Arena, which I think might just be coming out, Dedale. So that's French for, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, let's face it, you've not heard French, you've heard it said by a Scotsman. Daedalus, right? So the labyrinth and the Minotaur in that. And this is a 35 card game, so like 2 button shy cards. In it there is a Minotaur in the middle, and on the back of every card is a colour, and there's a bunch of tiles on the cards with colours. You are, at its core, trying to trap the Minotaur within the labyrinth. So on the cards there are 6 blocks with various walls around the outside, and you are trying to build the maze in a way that fulfills the requirements. So the basic requirement is to trap the Minotaur, which is build the walls around him. But there's 10 scenarios in the game, and then that might be trap the Minotaur with a torch. That is the first scenario, actually. And then it might be trap the Minotaur within a maze with 5 colours touching, or trap the Minotaur in an area with, by the time you get to the 5th scenario, you have to put pillars all around the Minotaur and then trap him in there. And you're limited to where you can play the cards, because on the back of the cards it tells you what colour you have to place the card over. So this is using like a mechanism similar to Sprawlopolis or Agropolis, the button shy type games, or a number of other these sort of micro card games. And it's fine. Played it sort of 4 or 5 times. Didn't win the 5th scenario, but I'll go back and play it. I just don't think it's got a lot of legs as a solo puzzler. I think it's probably moderately solvable, and that there's a lot of ways to get to the end. There's enough cards that you can make enough of a difference. I didn't win scenario 5 because I didn't understand that I had to place the 6 columns directly adjacent to the Minotaur, but it does make that clear in the picture. So I'll go back and have another go at that. But I think everything's entirely doable. It is. If you've played a game called Bandido or Bandida, where you're kind of blocking off escape routes for a burglar from jail or a criminal from jail, it's got that kind of vibe. It's got the sort of Sprawlopolis vibe, where you're putting things on top of things, and it either opens up a room or it closes off a room, and you've got to get the right things in that room to do it. I'm not sure how much it is. I'm not sure how big the box is, but it is only 35 cards. And if you like, if you're looking for something to pass the time, it's probably pretty good. But I think it will end up being a little bit like my Mazescape games, where you kind of get bored before you get to the end. You've kind of seen what's on offer. There's not a lot more to it.
A little looks a little reminiscent of Nimalia, which is a game where you're building a sort of an animal sanctuary and you're laying cards on top of each other and they have different colors on them, but you're not instructed in that game to cover up certain things. It is also a competitive drafting game. You're just you just have to cover something. But you're trying to fulfill rotating objectives in that one while drafting cards. It's nice. Namale is a nice little game. It's a lot. It's a surprising amount of game for a tiny little box. But I have to take a hard pass on Dedale because I'm looking at the pictures here and it seems like the fundamental objective is to build a room around the Minotaur, which is not a labyrinth. It's not a labyrinth. It's a room. So I'm out.
Specifically not a labyrinth. Yeah.
There's that ludonarrative disconnect, Barry. It's not a thematic game. It's an abstract game. And thematically, I want to build a labyrinth. So...
Yep. Well, that was a little less quick fire than I had hoped, but I played a lot of games and then I was like, oh, what will I talk about? And I'm just like, I'll just talk about them all.
Yep, there we go. So if you want to continue to hear Barry do quickfire rundowns, you leave a comment down below. And if you'd like Barry to audit what he talks about, leave a comment down below and we'll find out. We'll crowdsource it. Yeah. Can't say we'll listen, can't say we'll do what you say, but we'll certainly read the comments. At least that
there's
much.
only 2 games in this section. It's because Mike just cut it out.
Cut it all.
Barry's quickfire roundup, and on to the next one.
Barry's quickfire roundup. So I played Papayoo again, and we're on to the news. I've only got one game that I'm going to talk about here in the played section because we are getting into our UKGE stuff ASAP. But I did play this, and I really wanted to talk about it because it's currently live on crowdfunding right now. When you hear this episode, it will probably have been live for just over a week, but this is a prototype copy I was sent by the publisher to try. And I don't do reviews of Kickstarter previews or anything like that. I don't do sponsored content of that. I do gameplay, sponsored gameplay. I do sponsored rules videos, and that's it. And typically, I don't do Kickstarter prototypes at all. I will play them. And so I have said so I promised I would play this and I would talk about it, and I am now fulfilling that role. This is Final Titan. It's a 3 to 5 player game, and it is a argy-bargy, very luck-driven, swingy, party-esque game. So this is currently on crowdfunding. It's designed by Richard Garfield, who is the designer of Greedy Greedy Goblins and others, and also Christian Dedale, who designed Mindbug, Agent Avenue, and Heroes for Sale. Christian Dedale is a co-designer on Mindbug and Agent Avenue. So the artists are Xavier Qwirkle, who did Fall of the Mountain King, Emmanuel Desiati, who did Mistborn and Alibis, Maximilian Gotthold, who did Mystic Monkeys and Blacksmiths of Steinheimer, Fanny Pastor Burley, who did Agent Avenue and E-Rune, which we did do a sponsored gameplay of on the channel, if you're interested in E-Rune, and Nicholas Valley, who is the graphic designer for Final Titan. And that's the only credit I could find for that. So this is published by Nerd Lab Games, who did sponsor Barry and I to play Mindbug once, and who did publish Mindbug and also Agent Avenue, both of which I have received review copies of. It's a 3 to 5 player game. It says 30 to 45 minutes on the box, which seems pretty accurate. It will depend on your player count, and there's some slight variation depending on how much you want to yell at each other, I think. That's about it. So obviously, this is a prototype copy. The copy you can currently back on crowdfunding, I think, has something like 109 heroes. We had 42, which is more than enough for a few games. It's a sort of a party game. It wants you to begin with a recruitment round where you draft a roster of heroes. If you are playing for the first time, you can just be dealt them randomly. So we played twice, first with a random offering, and then again with the full roster. You get 4 heroes, and then you functionally have to do one-on-one duels with each other. And so you'll start with a first player who puts one of their heroes into the... Well, actually, you don't have to, because I guess the game is 2 parts. First is a Titan is put forward, And if you don't, and that is the Titan is the first hero to enter the ring, so to speak. So if everyone's sitting with their roster in front of them at the table, the Titan enters the middle of the table and becomes the sort of reigning champion. This is only the first time. After every subsequent, after the first Titan enters the ring, every challenger that kills the Titan will become the new Titan. So you'll never not have a Titan in the ring, right? And it's just going to be challengers stepping up to fight that Titan. And all you're doing is picking someone from your roster to go in and be the Titan, or you're giving up a card from your hand to say, no thanks, I don't want to be the Titan, and then play moves around the table. And it can come back to you. But if it does, now there's a bunch of cards that have been sacked off from people's hands all in the middle of the table. And if you become the challenger taking on the Titan, you get to collect all those cards into your hand. And these upgrade cards in your hand are good. They're very good. You start with 4 if you're the first player, and then you get to draw one every time you win a bout. So every time your Titan wins a fight or your challenger wins the fight, you get to draw 1 upgrade card. But once somebody pits a challenger against the Titan, then each player will have an opportunity to assign some upgrade cards from their hand to the hero, to the fighter. They're not really heroes. They're like a bunch of crazy kooky fighters. There's like a mad doctor and a rotting abomination and the dreadnought from Warhammer 40k and all kinds of random stuff. Mm-hmm. But you play these upgrade cards face down from your hand, then you reveal them and find out what horrible modifications are going to take place in the fight, and then that's it. Now it's just random luck that determines the outcome, because now that the fight starts, you get to take an action on your turn. You roll a die. The die triggers some amount of combat damage from your character sheet, your hero sheet. You do that damage, and then play passes back and forth, each player just taking turns to roll a die until one hero is dead and the other hero survives. And then that's it. The hero that survives does not get any health back, so they don't replenish their health. But you will find in the game there are some heroes that can regenerate health, like a vampire that drinks blood and an ent that can regrow its limbs, I guess, because it's a tree. But there is some minor nuances. There's lots of power tokens you can give out, like you can poison your enemies so they take damage on their turns. You can get action tokens that let you roll the die more than once. You can get power tokens that increase all the damage you do from the different rolls you've got. There's armor that prevents damage. You've also got bench powers. So some heroes will have a bench power. So long as they're on your bench, they will boost the hero in your other heroes in their fights. So there's a tiny amount of comboing you may be able to do if you can draft a bench power. Also, every hero has an ultimate. And if you roll the charge symbol on the die, then you get to flip a charge token, roll it again, and you get to pull off your ultimate, which can be very consequential and cool. Some characters also have like an ultimate form. So some do an ultimate move, so it triggers like a badass move and then it's done. Others have an ultimate form, and if they pull off the ultimate, they just become something better forever. And I read the rule book for this, and Nerd Lab were like, we're going to send you the prototype. I was like, guys, I don't do that stuff. So, if you've got someone you want to actually pay to cover this, like that'd be better for your campaign. And they're like, we'll just send it to you. It's fine. And I read the rules and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give this a try, but it's not really my thing. But I know a lot of people who are into King of Tokyo. And I know people who like Richard Garfield's like sort of lighter party games. So I'll bring it to them and we'll see how we get on with it. And I got to say, I had a lot of fun. This was a really good laugh. Like, I really didn't expect to have as much fun as I did. There is vague King of Tokyo vibes. There's also, if you ever played a game called Challengers, which is like sort of a game that mimics, or it's a facsimile of like a tournament the tournaments, it's like a card tournament. You swap seats to play everybody at the table. And so you need like 6 or 8 players or something. But the decks autoplay themselves. So really the game is the deck building you do in between the rounds of the tournament. But it had that kind of vibe as well, because the the battles functionally auto resolve. Like you just roll the die and see what happens. And there's a lot of swingy luck in there, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the it sort of auto resolves itself. So really, the game is in effectively really the matchups that thanks and the upgrade cards you choose to play, and that's about it. Yeah. So anyway, but shorter than challengers, way shorter than challengers, and people don't have to stand up and move around the table. It feels less sort of like you're picking on people than King of Tokyo as well. Because like King of Tokyo, will have like sort of somebody's got a lot of hit points or whatever, and you're sort of waiting for someone to go into the middle. It's been a while since I've played it, so I might be misremembering it. But there's sort of two things this does that are really, really, really good that work for it. One is that it creates a lot of really swingy luck, but still makes you feel like the decisions that you take are important. Because you have so few upgrade cards and they can be so consequential, no thanksing something, and I'm using no thanks because it does feel like you're playing no thanks, but on a much smaller scale because you've only got a handful of upgrade cards. But no thanksing something feels like a really important decision. And so being able to sort of assess whether or not one of your heroes on your bench has a chance against the thing in the middle right now, it feels important enough to give the game a sense of stakes. And then the other thing is the ultimate, right? Because it's a D6 you're rolling. Each hero has 4 stats, and the stats are color-coded, but they're functionally really just bad attack, okay attack, good attack, and best attack. And so you're rolling a D6, and 4 of the faces are just triggering one of those attacks. One face is a total whiff, and the other face is the charge symbol. But when you roll the charge symbol for the first time and it charges up your ultimate, so you flip that token, you get to roll again. And that's huge, because what it means is it always feels like on your next turn, you could roll, even when you don't have the charge token lit up, you could roll a 6 twice and pull off your ultimate, right? Like, so you always, and those ultimates are so consequential that it always feels like you've got a chance. And that's just like, and I've said before, I like gambling, not in real life. I actually never gamble with money, but maybe this is why, because I really enjoy it. I really enjoy gambling. I really like swingy luck. But I like it to feel like it has stakes, and I like it to feel like it matters. I don't want to play a game where it's pure luck and it doesn't feel like we have any agency or any control or any, decision space at all. So it doesn't really matter. It gives you just enough tantalizing stakes and tantalizing decision making, and then the rest you just kind of have to watch with chagrin. And I really thought as well, like with 4 players and 2 people sitting out and not playing, it would be a bummer. But the fights are over so quickly, and you really care about what's going on as well. Like you get really invested, even in the fights you're not taking part in. Everyone at the table got really into it. I got to say, I think this is like for like sort of an easy to grasp, like fun gateway game. I think this is going to be a big hit. I really liked it. I want to play it again.
Well, if people do want to play, I think it's on Tabletop Simulator.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, there's definitely something about that in the campaign.
I don't think that would be good.
No, like real life's probably better. There's a print and play as well, if people want to go to the trouble of printing some of the champions out.
That would be a better idea. I think that would, you rolling the dice and sort of being able to sit around the table and eyeball the heroes and, make those decisions. Like Tabletop Simulator, it's going to be too slow. Like, it slows the games down, and this is gonna suffer if you play it slowly. This wants to be played fast and punchy and quick decisions, and like I said, we got through 2 games so quickly.
Yeah, Print and Plays gives you 48 champions. Or 40, it gives you about 40 champions.
So that sounds like it's the prototype then.
Yeah.
So that sounds, the prototype's 42.
Yeah, that looks about right. There's a page of 2 at the end, so 42. So people could play the same version you had.
Exactly, and I recommend it. It's really good. Like, it's really fun.
Nice. All right. I'll back it. I'll do it now.
I mean, how much is it to back?
Depends on what version you want. For the full version, so for the full version, $89, €89, sorry, plus VAT. If you want the sleeves, that's another 20 or €30 maybe. Plus your shipping and stuff. I don't know what shipping is, so it'll probably be about $100.
Well, that's a lot. So this is to be clear, this is a King of Tokyo level experience. I think it's better than King of Tokyo personally, but I also am not like a massive fan of King of Tokyo. I do like Richard Garfield's lighter fares, hence why I called out Greedy Greedy Goblins earlier, rather than any of the mainstream things he's designed or like things people would know. But yeah, like I think for $100, that's I would,
Well, standard all in €64.
That seems more reasonable.
But if you don't want any of the expansions, there's a €40 version. Plus whatever VAT and shipping is, so it end up being 50 quid maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
the core game. Yeah.
I've not reviewed the Kickstarter page, so I'm not sure what more there is to offer. What I played was functionally half of the retail core set, or the sort of the basic core set. I don't know how much more you would need. I wouldn't be averse to some extra thing. I was even saying when I was playing with the folks that there is in oh, come on, brain. Let's go. Come on, brain. There is in Wonderland's War, which is basically, Wonderland's War is basically what if El Grande and Quacks of Quedlinburg had a baby. There is in Wonderland's War a function where if you're not in the fight, you can bid on the outcome. So you play a card face down that refers to a player, and then everyone reveals those cards at the end and they get a Benny if they got it right and a penalty if they got it wrong. And having some way to bid on the fights you're not in Final Titan would be awesome. I don't know if they've looked at that, but like if there's an expansion that offered something like that, some little bits for people to do, I'd be into it. If the expansions start adding lots of complex mechanisms, I think one of the reasons this works was just how quick it was, and just the balance of the sort of the swingy luck and the surprising outcomes. It was really, it felt really, really solid. But I again, like, it is a fun party experience. I don't know if I would spend €100 on it. At least not until I played it, and then I'd want to know it works with the group I've got. If you're going to play it a lot, if you're going to play the 5-player version a lot, a giant roster of heroes is going to do you well, because you're going to see them a lot. You might even start to establish sort of a meta about what's good and what's not. Certainly some of them seemed really bust in our game, and I don't know if they'll obviously balance it, balance slightly. It's not going to ever be balanced, and part of the fun is that some heroes have very obvious strengths and weaknesses, and you're trying to exploit that, so you pick the fights that are going to favor you, right? But also, like, there was one hero which was just like, if I roll my ultimate, you just get to draw another hero for your bench, and it's like, that seems nuts.
Yeah.
So, maybe the idea is somebody needs to go in there with a very strong hero that can just defeat that one quickly. But there's a lot of heroes whose ultimates are just like, one of the heroes' ultimates was, if I roll my ultimate, every other player has to discard a hero from their bench. So, like, some of the ultimate, some of the those are the two like really swingy broken ultimates, and they're balanced out by the hero themselves not being very strong.
Yeah.
Most of the ultimates are like, if I roll my ultimate, I do my 2 most powerful attacks. So, and some of the ultimates are, when I roll my ultimate, the other hero that I'm fighting against just dies. But part of the fun as well is that the battles are done so fast. They're really, really quick to resolve, and I think it needs that. If it gets longer and you're sitting for a long time while people just roll a die back and forth, it will lose the momentum of the game, which is currently, I think, pitch perfect. Anyway,
yeah, sounds fun. I like chucking dice, so.
All right, and with that is what I've been playing. So I would say let's talk about UK Games Expo.
Woo! Right, finally we get to the crux of the podcast, what we're going to be playing in the next couple of weeks at the Expo, or at least looking at, if not available to buy or play. I've got a whole bunch of games that I want to talk about, perhaps in a quickfire roundup style, which tends to go on for too long anyway. But I'll run through them in alphabetical order, or you can feel free to interject with something you're thinking about as well. So one of the first games I want to look at is a game called Ace of Spades, and this is published by Devere, designed by Benjamin Amorin. This is his only game, and the artist on it is David Rubin, and this is also his only game. You'll be able to find this at stand 3/10/30, so I presume that's Hall 3, 10:30, and it is new to try. It's not available to buy yet, but it is a solo, mostly solo, you can play 2 players, hand management game set in the Wild West, and it uses poker hands as a resolution mechanism. And it looks quite interesting, but I'm mostly interested in the poker hands as the resolution mechanism for something else that I've been working on myself, where you use poker hands to resolve outcomes. Mine's is a solo RPG though. So I don't know a huge amount about the game. I've not seen the game being played, but this and a couple of other things I've been looking at has got me into the theme, and I'm interested to at least see how they've gone about making things work. I found that using poker hands are a bit inconsistent if you want specific poker hands to trigger an ability, but it could be that a high card might have a good power, and the hand management element is also something that's often fun if done well. I don't suppose you've seen this one necessarily, but
no, I've not had a look at this. I've been playing a lot of Balatro, so I'm quite familiar with poker hands at this
Poker
time.
hands,
They're, I don't know.
Well, probably not one for you.
Yeah.
It can be played 2-player, but it is a solo game. It's sort of Weird West, Wild West style. Looking at the overview, the necromancers ruined your life and taken over the cemetery, so you're going through shooting up the skeletons and zombies that are being raised up, and you channel your magic through your poker hands. So
Yeah, I'd definitely be willing to try it, but with so many different kinds of poker hands and potential power levels, I think you need a pretty robust system to make it good and interesting.
Agreed. I know some of the difficulties I've had, so I want to see how other people have solved them. That'll be one stop on my trip. Next stop will be for a game called Alibis, and this is published by Allplay, designed by Yusuke Sato, who also did Don't Mess with Cthulhu and some others, and the artist on this one is Albert Montes, who did the Resist and Witchcraft games, as well as The Hunt. You'll be able to find these on stand 2604, and this is new to buy, and I probably will buy it because I think it would be fun. So this is a small box deduction word game. As we know, love deduction games. And players cooperatively work together to figure out who the real criminal is. So it has, there's 13 bad guys. Each bad guy gets a codename style word put on them. And then each player gets a number of bad guys or 2 bad guys to look at. And you have to connect those words on the criminals or potential criminals into a single word clue. So it combines So Clover or Just One with sort of this codenames element, and then the other players have to figure out who you're talking about until you've eliminated all the possibilities, and that leaves the one card that has not been described by any of the players as the real criminal. That makes sense.
Mm.
So I'm on the hunt for a word game. I mentioned that when we talked about paperback adventures last podcast or podcast before. And the cards themselves, you could easily just substitute them with codenames cards. They're functionally and about the same size, identical. So you could always reuse those if you run out of words, but I doubt you ever will. Seems like fun and accommodates a slightly larger group.
Yeah, definitely give that a try. It sounds interesting.
So these are all things that are either new to buy, new to try here. So one that is new to buy that looks quite interesting is Black Metro. So this is published by Absolute Ascendancy and designed by Imesh D'Souza. And it's the first game for both of them. I presume designer and publisher are one and the same. The artist is Diego Sanchez, who's done a lot of things, but nothing I've ever heard of. And this will be available for £60 at the expo, or for £80 you can get a neoprene mat and an art book as well. But this is a full-size box, area control worker placement, set in a futuristic dark city. And it looks pretty cool. I don't know much more about it, but I like area control. I like worker placement. I like the combination of the two. But there's demos running every 20 minutes all weekend, and so I'm hoping to get in on that. And if I don't, then I'll never be back to the expo. Surely I can get in with every demo every 20 minutes.
Yep, sounds reasonable.
And then going back to our Venn diagrams of trains and board gamers, Cargo Empire will be there to purchase. It is published by Moa Ideas Game Design. Not sure if I'm saying that right. But designed by Alexander Bogdanovsky and Penny Schechter. There's no listed artist. And I couldn't find one, so I don't know who actually did the art on this. But, you know, we're there with some train friends, and so we have to look at every train game that's going. On the plus side, half of them are actually at the Moa Ideas stand, and so we'll also pick up the Mini Express expansion maps that we didn't manage to get last year, and Mini Rails is there as well. So we'll look at all of those. But Cargo Empire is a contract-based pick up and deliver hand management game with trains. You kind of know what you're in for. It just depends how well it pulls it off. So hopefully get to play it and see if it's worth owning.
Yeah, it's interesting. I looked at this as well, although I'm not sure why. Pick up and deliver and contract fulfillment are all the things that I'm least excited by.
It's because it's got trains and the overlap is... the pool is too strong. I can't stay away. Next game, so alphabetically, Chroma Arcana. So this is published by Rock Nest Games and designed by Mo Shawa. Their only game. Artists on it are Ver Fadul, Nadine Jakubowski and Sandra Singh. You'll find them at stand 3222, and this is new to buy. So this is a 2-player card game, and if there's anything that I don't need, it is another 2-player card game. But the art on this one is very pretty, and the gameplay itself looks interesting enough. I want to give it a try to see if it kind of appeals to me through actually playing, rather than just the rules, because I'll never turn down a 2-player card game. They're usually fun. But this was a crowdfunded game that did pretty decently. I think it may have been on both GameFound and Kickstarter, and got decent money both times. And there's also a solo or co-op expansion where you're fighting sort of big enemies together, which changes the dynamic of these kind of games. Mostly the head-to-head 2-player games are where I'm at, but I do like the solo and co-op ones as well. So if you... looks really nice. Hopefully the gameplay holds up the same way, and I'll be very interested in giving it a go.
Fun fact. So I once went to a talk on game design with Tom Leman, and we're talking about sort of designing all kinds of different games, just stuff like that. It was... and fun fact, Mo Shawa was there, and I met them there. So I hope their game is good now that they finally got it published.
I do too. It looks pretty good, so fingers crossed. But you never know till you try.
Well, exactly. And I'll let you go and try that one. So then if it's bad, I don't have to be the one to call it out.
Yeah, fine. That's fair. I will do it. Speaking of class, oh, what a segue. The new game from Paverson Games, there to try, will be Class of 89. And this is designed by Corey Jordan. And the artist is Eric Evanson, who also did Distilled for Paverson Games. They'll be at stand 3A418. And last year they had, big release or a big upcoming release with Luthier, which is now delivering or delivered to people. Also at the stand, they've got distilled cocktails. Which finally lets people brew more than one drink per
Does it
round.
actually?
But this new game, yes, finally you can do more than one in a round if you have the ingredients for it.
Are you going to try cocktails?
I mean, I've had cocktails before, but yes, I'll see what's. I don't know if cocktails is actually there available to buy. It will come to. I don't think it's going straight to retail. It might come to crowdfunding.
Oh.
A little later in the year.
Oh.
So I think it's a way off.
Boo.
But don't hold me to that. I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll find out. So distilled, I think you cooled a bit on distilled. I was never massively into it. I picked up the rest of the distilled bits to give it sort of a try. Yeah. Transparency, I was given a review copy by Paverson Games of Distilled. I bought the expansion bits. I'm still not sold on it. I'm still not. It's like, I want to like it more than it is. Cocktails is now offering the one thing I've been like, this is what, at least the one thing I was like, this game really needs. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it at this stage because it feels like there's already too much going on to just add more. But who knows? Maybe. I guess I've still got distilled. I haven't moved it on yet, so maybe I'll give it a try. We'll see. But if I have to wait around for another 2 years for this, I don't know. Feels like by then we will have moved on from distilled.
Very possibly. Yeah, there's a separate. There's additional stuff along with distilling a second one because it changes the dynamics of the game. But that's not what we care about. What we care about this year is Class of 89. So Class of 89, that seems like yearbooks and summer in the 80s and 90s is a theme coming around at the moment. But this is a game of completing your yearbook in the 80s, end of the 80s, with set collection, tile placement, where you put them within your yearbook, determining what points you earn for each. I think there's also like you want them to be alphabetical as well. So quite a tricky task to get everything together and build the perfect yearbook to score the most points. Now, I don't think we've really got yearbooks as a general rule of thumb in the UK, but the theme shouldn't be too abstract to us. We know what they are. Another game I'd quite like to give a try is a 2-player card game. Wait a minute. And this is Crimson Keep. It seems to be a self-published game by Nick Warren, and it'll be at stand 3962, and it's new to try. So in this game, 2 clans, or I believe there's a solo version with the Automa, will go head to head, a bit of back and forth, while building up their magic to summon a dragon for an epic final battle. And I think it's asymmetrical. I think one side's the defender, one side's the attacker. But I could have that wrong, and it could be that you do both. But in it, the attackers are trying to assault the castle enough whilst building up their magic pool to summon this dragon. The defenders are trying to keep their defences up and stave off that final fight for the dragon. The only thing I don't really like is if neither side's won at the end, it seems to come down to a 1 in 6 dice roll. Where if you roll a 6, the attacker wins, and if you roll anything else, the defender wins. So I'll have to have a look into that, because I would hate to play for like 2 hours for it to come down to that.
Yeah.
At the very end, but that's why you want to try games before.
I never sent you the video of us finishing our Ark's Blighted Reach campaign where it came down to a dice roll.
There's some good dice rolls and some bad dice rolls that things can come down to. Like I've been on Battlestar Galactica, that last card flip or whatever, and I've been to we need an 11+ here to defeat Cthulhu. Like those are good. But sometimes, you don't want it to just be, well, you're definitely not strong enough to get through. All I need to do is defend.
Well, it's really all about how responsible you feel that it's come down to this. Yeah. If you feel like you did your best and it's still just a dice roll, it's frustrating. But if you feel like, you gambled and it didn't pay off, or you played badly, but you still have a chance, then it's okay. So that's the key, isn't it?
It's a tough one to balance, but I'll check it out, see what it's like. Moving on. So back to trains and Cube Express. This is here new to buy. Although I feel like it was there last year and I never got around to seeing it, but it could have just been new to try last year. So this is published by Spiel, but it's there under Revelation Games, and Revelation Games bring foreign market games to the UK. So the designer of this one is Orlando Sa. He's made some things I've never played, but the artist is Harold Liske.
Oh, I've played Neotopia. Sorry, by Orlando Sa.
Any good?
Yeah, it was all right. I moved it on, but it was okay. Yeah, it was a reasonably interesting sort of middleweight tile laying game. I think if you're really into your sort of tile placement, you would probably enjoy it. Very competitive, like sort of like a lot of player interaction for tile placement. So that was good.
Hopefully this is the same. Basically, the artist here has done old Castles of Burgundy, Power Grid, Dominion, Lograna.
If you like your classic Euros.
If you like your classic
original Dominion, if you like your inconsistent art.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, sure they didn't do all the cards,
but the only notes I've made on this one is trains in it. So if it's a train game, we'll go have a look.
Oh, I'm glad you're taking that one for the team because I don't want to check out every train game at the convention.
No, you got to do them all. Right, getting there, nearing the end of my big list. I want to check out Message in a Bottle. So this is a game from Alicat Games, designed by Urtis Selinskas, and the artist on this one is Natalia Efremova. You'll find Alicat at 3902, and this game is new to buy. I think it's actually out now, but it's new to buy there. And this is a party word game. So both the form and the game work well hand in hand. The game comes in a little see-through plastic bottle with a cork in it, and in there are dice and tokens. You take the tokens out for playing, but the dice remain in the bottle. You give it a shake, you put it down, and on the dice are different letters, along with some dice that give instructions as to where letters might need to be. And the first player to say a word using all the letters and following the rules gets the point. Simple as that. Simple game, should be quite cheap. And I've mentioned before, I was looking for a word game with paperback adventures. I like something like this. It's a little bit like Boggle, but rather than spending ages writing down words, it's just whoever gets there first gets the point. I'm fine with that. Oh, there's a new version of Wordsy.
I saw that, yeah. I was like, oh, Barry likes that one.
Yeah. I played that a couple of weeks ago. I'm tempted to get the new version just because the cards are much prettier, but it doesn't. There's no gameplay difference, so there's no point. Yeah, and so I'm also hoping for some Alicat Games Redemption, because I bought Washed Ashore from last year and it wasn't very good. And then I had a look and there's a new Fate Flip system game by Royal Decree due this year, and I'm like, no, I don't like it. So they should stop making them. If I don't like it, if it's not for me, then I don't. Then they
listen.
Make them.
All you need to know is, did we talk about it on the podcast? Did we like it? If we did and we didn't like it, skip it. There's so many games, and if Barry and I don't like it, then it's definitely not good. At least one of us should like it.
I mean, yeah, people's tastes are different, right? I mean, there's lots of games out there that people enjoy.
No, pretty sure this is facts.
Oh no, but we're right.
Yeah, facts.
Not, so. Lols. Well, if we can't get to Final Titan dice chucking in time, I have found another dice chucker that I'm interested in playing, and that is Pina Coladice. And this is published by Yellow, designed by Jan Dupont, and the artist on this one is Crocotami, I'm not sure, but they also did Odin and Luz, Luz. You'll find Yellow at stand 2518, and this is new to buy. So this is a game which is Yahtzee Rules Connect 4, is how I've written this down. There's a grid, I think maybe a 5x5 grid, and each card within that grid has a certain requirement, such as a straight 2-pair, 4 of a kind, something along those lines. On your turn, you roll your 5 dice, and then it's Yahtzee rules, you get 2 rerolls, and if you complete the requirements of a card, you can put your dice on, or your token on to show you've marked it, and the aim of the game is to get 4 cards in a row. So, really simple, looks really nice, it's quite vibrant and pretty, but at its core, just a dice chucker along the lines of Yahtzee and Connect 4, which you may think both those games are not great, but together, who knows? And then finally, one last one that I want to check out, and definitely something I want to see in person, and this is Time Troopers. So this is published by Molinarius Games, designed by Lee Miller, who did Ocean Pods, and Mark Pallett, who's only done this one. The artists on it are Rob Ingle and Pia Kajorntek, whose Board Game Geek profile mentions they're from Fiverr and is very adamant that is not AI. Right, so you'll find Time Troopers and Molinarius Games at stand 3T27, and this game there's new to try. So I saw this, I was getting ads for this a little while ago on Facebook, and I was convinced it was AI slop. The art on it just looks so very, very AI at a glance. And I mean, I'm unsure of the inspiration for some of this art. Let's put it that way, right? So the artist is available on Fiverr, but expressly states that they're not using AI. And Molinarius Games has come out and said that it's not AI. I've spent a long time looking at the art, what they've released of it, the sort of sketches, the full thing, and the individual pieces. And I think I'm willing to come down on the side of it not being AI. Right, the backgrounds are pretty detailed and interesting. They're clearly a separate layer. The art itself doesn't have some of the markers that you might expect. But I'm almost convinced that the artist is getting AI inspiration before drawing it. And whether it's drawing over the top or whether it's just the poses and the designs, because there's a lot of different. I don't want to poo-poo these artists' creativity, but it just looks like AI and what AI would come up with if you put it in, asking them to do something, and the poses and the variety of styles and the flourishes they'd put on there, right? It's maybe, I'm sure it's not AI, right? Or at least not just AI.
Mm-hmm.
But at a glance, it looks AI, and I'm similarly revulsed by it, right? And that's perhaps unfair, so I'm going to go check it out. Anyway, if you don't care about the art, or the art is super legit, the game itself is a solo deck building puzzle game, and I don't understand how it works, but it looks like it might be a bit of a sort of I put here like a modern time stories where you're doing something, you're going through the steps, and you spend your cards to do stuff, but you might have to look back and go through again a second time to achieve your objectives or whatever. I don't fully know. I bought most of Molinarius' games, or at least Lee Miller's games last year. I bought Ocean Pods, I bought Lakes. They also had Shoal on their stand, which was a different designer, but the only game I kept was Shoal. But this looks like the biggest game that Lee Miller's done, and I'll be interested to see a bit more about it. And that's it. Those are things that I'm definitely going to check out, but there's hundreds of other games there. What ones grab your attention more?
Well, I definitely have fewer on my list, but that's probably partly because I've played some. Well,
You've already seen some of the games
sure.
there.
So, but anyway, I've picked out 3 that I wanted to talk about. And actually the first one I'm just going to get right into because we talked about it already. It's Terrorscape. This has been out for a while. I only picked this out at all because I was surprised to see Ice Makes, the publisher, were at UKGE. The game's been really hard to get outside of China. They're a Chinese-based publisher. And they've got a Game Found campaign coming out in due course. And so I said I was going to play it because I had a review copy from Essen. And I did play it. And we played. So this is Terrascape. It is the one versus others hidden movement horror game where the one is a murderer and the others are survivors. It's designed by Jeffrey CCH, who also did Inheritors, Age of Galaxy, and some others. The artists are Samuel Horowitz, who did Age of Galaxy, and Roxy Dye, who did Inheritors, Age of Galaxy, and some others. It's a 2 to 4 player game with one player always playing the murderer and up to 3 other players playing survivors. The game, it says it takes 30 to 45 minutes. I think that's probably going to be highly dependent on player count. I think if you're playing it dueling 1v1, maybe it could be as short as that. But I reckon, well, our 4-player game took 90 minutes, but we did play it for as long as it can possibly be played because there is a time limit. This is a review copy I was given of the retail edition of the game at Essen, or at least, I don't know, maybe this is the edition everyone got, but there was probably stretch goals and things that came with the Kickstarter. Like I know, for example, there's a big house that separates the sides of the board. So it's a screen, so you can't see what the other person's got on their board. And there was a plastic one. I've got the cardboard one. So I don't know exactly what version I've got, but I believe this is the bare bones one. It's an X-demo copy as well. So that's what I've got, but it was given to me gratis from the publisher. Anyway, we played the very basic version of the game. It is a killer called the Butcher. There's 3 killers in the box, but it also comes with a manual that talks about many more killers that I can only assume are expansions and stretch goals. The box comes with 3. The Butcher, who is a guy with a big guy with an axe. The Murderer, who's like sort of a sneaky guy with knives, and the Banshee, who's a ghost. And you've both got sort of a layout of the house on either side of this mansion in the middle of the board. And what you're doing functionally, what's interesting is it's a hidden movement game, but it's actually the survivors that are hidden. So the survivors know where the murderer is, but the murderer doesn't know where the survivors are. So the murderer just kind of stalks around the house and then sometimes declares, "I do a murder in this room. Is anyone here?" And if so, then the person is revealed and stabbed. There's always going to be 3 survivors. So whether you're playing 1 or 3, you're either soloing it, you're either 3-handing it or not. But the survivors, the turns are very, very quick and very, very straightforward. Really, all you're doing is, if you're the survivors, you're just doing a couple actions, which are moving around and potentially taking down barricades the murderers put up. And ultimately what you're doing is hunting for keys. There's 2 things you can do to actually escape, at least in this situation. I don't know if there's more boards in the expansions and things. But in this haunted house, murder house situation, you're either fixing the radio so you can call the cops, and then the cops will take 5 turns to show up, or you are collecting 5 keys so you can escape, either out the front door, or if you've found the secret map, out the secret garden exit. There is a deck of sort of useful items, and you're forced to draw one at the end of the survivor's turn. And if that deck runs out, you're out of time and you're presumed dead. So you have to try to accomplish this before that deck runs out. And the Butcher just kind of stalks around the house and puts up barricades and tries to sort of corner you and murder you. The other murderers have a bit more going on, but unfortunately I haven't had a chance to play with them yet. Anyway, the actual fights themselves are resolved with dice, and typically the murderer is going to win unless you have quite a powerful rebuttal. There is a pistol if you can find some ammo for it. That's probably your best shot at surviving. But you're probably not going to have a chance if you don't at least have some equipment for your defense. I would say the game is very tense. There's a lot of sort of tension, and I would describe it as sort of fun stress. You are, as the survivors, allowed to whisper with one another, so that's fun. You can do some sneaky whispering and some collaborating in secret as well. I played I played on the three survivors team against the murderer. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really solid. I think, it really did what it came to do, and the tension was good. It was fun. We were definitely playing it a bit too safe, and we did win, but we very, very, very nearly ran out of time. Each survivor only has 2 lives, so if you take a hit, then it becomes very tense because one more hit and you're dead. If any one survivor is killed, the game is won in favor of the murderer because they've successfully done a murder. Yeah, really fun. I really liked it. I think if this sort of thing is your jam, you're really going to enjoy this. I think if you don't like hidden movement, you don't like fun stress, then you're not going to like it. Now, there's a strong caveat here that we did think that the butcher was a little bit too simple. It was a good introduction, but I think over the long term, you're going to very quickly get bored of the butcher. Now, what the game adds with the other 2 killers in the box is a mechanic called stealth, where the killer can move also hidden. So now there's hidden movement on both sides. You understand something about what they can do. You will, I believe, know when they are stealthed, but not necessarily where they've gone. You, as the survivors, get to know what cards are in their deck, and if they play a card, they must show it to you. So if they've done a card that gives them stealth, then you understand what they could feasibly have done. And you must try to sort of intuit what you think they might have done based on, their disposition and strategy. So I think stealth will really add an interesting complexity to the game that was absent from our game. The Butcher doesn't have any stealth, presumably to keep it simple for the first time you play, but I think at the cost of, it being a more interesting and enjoyable experience, particularly for the person playing the killer. So I'm dead keen to get it back to the table and explore the stealth mechanism, but it was a strong enough first showing that I'll definitely go and look at the Ice Mix booth at UKGE and possibly pick up some more murderers as well. Like there was a werewolf that was sort of teased in the box that I don't have. So there's some bits in there I'd be keen to look at. But I think, yeah, if you're interested in getting this is probably the best opportunity to do it outside of their forthcoming crowdfunding campaign.
Yep, I've heard good things.
Before I wrap up Terrascape, just very quickly, I enjoyed it at 3. I think I'd probably want to play the Survivors at 2 and 3. I think it would lose something if you're playing all 3 Survivors on your own. I do think it would still be fun as a head-to-head game, but I didn't feel like, even though we were 3 Survivors and we weren't doing a whole lot individually, it was nice to be on a team, to share the tension, to share the stress. The other players picked up on some stuff that I missed, just strategically, which was always nice as well. So, as a team game and at maximum size, obviously, like in a 1 versus many, I do think one of the typical pitfalls can be that you don't feel like you have enough going on individually or enough interesting decision space. To balance out the many versus the one to make but this is slightly different because it's a horror setting. It's designed to make a compelling game, but also, the many is supposed to be, or the one is supposed to be strong enough to be scary. The characters also have the survivors have like a special ability, each one, just a one-off unique player power. And I do think that might pigeonhole you into a certain role. Like we had a player who, if they find a key, they don't make any noise. Whereas everyone else, when they find a key, somehow like stubs their toe or, screams out or something. So like that's a big problem. So we had one character who was just going around looking for all the keys. And on the one hand, yeah, I could see there being a valid criticism that I was pigeonholed into a role and my turns were fairly rote. But it was tense enough and the position of the killer was important enough to affect that player's actions that they enjoyed it. They didn't make those complaints. I'm just making that observation. I didn't find, even though my job was fix the radio because I was the engineer, I didn't find that uninteresting and I didn't find my turns boring, even though I was fairly pigeonholed and didn't have a whole, I only had 2 actions a turn, but still, I really enjoyed it. So definitely keen to check out more of that stuff. And Ice Makes are at stand 4700, 4-700, which I guess is in Hall 4, which we've not been in before. So that's exciting.
No, exciting.
I've also got Power Vacuum. Have you seen this?
No.
So it's a Kickstarter that has not yet made it to retail, but apparently it will be available to buy at the UKGE. This is a 1 to 5 player trick taking game. So it's designed by Caleb Wenzel Fisher, who also designed a game called Crime Spree. And the artist is Malachi Ray Rampin, who did Roll Camera and Itchy Feet, which are the other two games by Keen Bean Studio, who is the publisher of Power Vacuum. And it says it takes 30 to 45 minutes. We'll see about that, but it's supposed to be a relatively quick trick-taking game with hidden scoring. So what you've got here is two major components to the game. One is the deck of cards with which you will play trick-taking, and the other is a council of power, wherein you've got so the game has this quirky, cartoony art, and the power vacuum, it's supposed to be about different nations or perhaps different politicians in a cabinet or something like that, but different characters vying for power. And you want your character to get power, and you also want the character you dislike to have no power. And so you've got these set of characters who are all anthropomorphic power tools sitting around, and one of them is, of course, a vacuum cleaner. Cartoony, tongue-in-cheek art involving power tools and a vacuum cleaner. But they're all sitting around like what looks like a Council of War table. And in front of them are desks. And so you've got this circle with all the characters around it, with desks with a plug in it. And then there's a little plug socket component that plugs into two of the desks. And so long as it's plugged into two of the characters, it can transfer power between them, so long as one of them has power. And at the beginning of a round, they all have equal power. And by winning tricks, actually, that's not true. By losing tricks, if you are the bottom of the trick, you can transfer a power across the cable from one character to another, provided you're taking it away from a character that has at least one to give. You can, instead of transferring the power, move the cable from one desk to another desk. So you can only change one of the two characters connected. And what you're trying to do functionally is to contrive a situation where you get the most points. Because in your hand, you've got all your cards. It's your sort of standard trick-taking deck. There's a couple of quirks, which I might mention. But it's just your standard trick-taking hand of cards otherwise. But you've got a secret scoring card as well. And on that secret scoring card, you can rotate it up or down, but it will show two characters, and you want the one at the top to have the most power at the end of the round, the trick-taking round. You want that one to have the most power, and you want the one on the bottom to have the least power. When you win it, it's standard trick-taking, so if you win a trick, you get to lead the next trick, and that's good. But if you lose a trick, you get to influence the power table, which is how you're actually going to win the game. So, I guess you want to lose tricks, but I guess it's hard to lose tricks if you're not leading them. I don't know. There's some quirks to the trick taking we can talk about in a minute. But if you end the round, you have to take your scoring card and choose its orientation and then reveal it. And if you're correct, i.e. the character shown at the top has the most power and the character shown at the bottom has the least power, you get 14 points. Huzzah. But you can also choose to reveal it before the round ends. And if you do that, you have to fix in the orientation, but then you get some points based on it becomes non-dependent. So if your top is right, you get half the points. If your bottom is right, you get half the points. If they're both right, you get the full points. It also upgrades a little scoring track every time you reveal it, so you get a little bit more points overall. And there is some little quirks to the trick taking as well. There's a trump suit, but then there's also like a secret trump suit, which trumps, but doesn't win hands otherwise. So that sounds interesting and quirky. I just thought, it's been relatively well received by the people who backed it. It's been popular. I like sort of hidden scoring and secret agendas. I like trick taking, so I thought I'd check it out.
Yeah, I like trick taking games. Seems like fun. Like, you want games that aren't just all about winning, right? So doing something when you lose is also fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it seems like almost all the impetus would be on losing. So there must be some challenge. If everyone's trying to lose the hand, then how does that change the dynamic? And when do you choose to try to win a trick so you can lead on the next trick? You know, I suppose you want to lead with a low number, like inverting the trick-taking dynamics. So you want to lead with a low number that you know other people have, so they're forced to follow with higher numbers. It's interesting. Like, and when do you sort of shift? Because if people can get a sense of who you're trying to win the power vacuum, so to speak, they'll just move that charging cable away and then you'll be stuffed, right? So you're trying to keep that somewhat secret. So when do you choose to reveal that, if you do at all? So it's interesting. It looked interesting. I just thought it looked like sort of an interesting take on trick taking. I'd be keen to check it out. And the last one I looked at with any great detail is Transgalactica. So this is a new game from Devir, but we all know that here in the UK, Devir is published by Cosmos Games, so this will be at stand 3/10/30 for Cosmos. And this is designed by Danielle Tashini, and the artist is Edie Valls, who did Batoku, 3-1 Circus, Trolls and Princesses, and others. Danielle Tashini, we know from many collaborations with Simone Luciane on the Marco Polo, on Sulcan. Daniel Tashini also did a solo game called Toriwakan, which is a sort of dice action worker placement affair. So this is supposed to be a 2 to 5 player game. It says 40 to 100 minutes. And it is a Euro game about exploring space with your spacefaring civilization in order to climb the tracks and gain the incomes. This uses an I choose you follow mechanism, and it's Devir and Edie Valls, so the production's going to be great. It's going to look gorgeous. I imagine the iconography will be solid. So the question is the game going to be good? And to be fair, Tiletum, which I mentioned earlier, as well as Daniel Tashini and Simone Luciani. So to be fair, I used to think I really liked Daniel Tashini's games. Then I kind of realized that actually I didn't like Toriwakan, and I only like Simone Luciani. So Toriwakan I actually enjoyed my first few plays of, but I got tired of it really quickly. I thought it just became quite rote, and it felt a little bit overwrought. I like Tiletum, so that's a bit of a return to form. I'm also assuming that Daniel Tashini has sufficiently apologized for all the stuff he said during COVID. I really hope that's true, because I'm going to feel bad talking about this if he hasn't.
No. I don't know what the current
is. He I know he issued a number of official apologies. I hope they were sufficient. It seems he's been allowed to be published again, so I don't know if they're imagining it's water under the bridge. Anyway, this game fell solidly into the category of I'll go and try it. I like Edie Valls. I think his games are gorgeous. I quite like Devir as a publisher. I'm on the fence about Daniel Tashini because I don't think I like any of the games he's published without the collaboration of Simone Luciani, which is to say that Toriwakan. I read the rulebook for this, and it's got this sort of system where you're the spacefaring civilization and you're sort of going out onto planets, and you place... This is the game I talk about with the outposts, by the way. The planets, the mining planets, all have rooms for one person's outpost. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't I just build 4 outposts and get 4 times as much mining? Because that's a abstract disconnect. 1 outpost per player per mining planet. Anyway, the point is you've got all these action spaces, and you can take that action with a captain. So you've got a number of workers that are captains and a number of workers that are just crew on your spaceships. And you put the captain out, you get to do the main action, and then everyone has an opportunity to follow, either by playing a crew or a captain. Onto the same action space. And I don't know, they seem to be marketing that as the main selling point, but I feel like that's not that innovative. So I don't know. Also, reading the rulebook, I did not get a good sense of how the game would play. There were a lot of tracks, and people seem to be moving up a lot of tracks. There's an income phase where you generate income from all of the income spaces, many of which you get by building the buildings on your board out onto the planets that exist on the board. Nothing felt exciting or innovative about it. So it could just be a solid Euro game, in which case that's fine. I won't regret my time with it. But I probably wouldn't pick up a copy unless there was something really interesting or that hooked me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I did look at this as well, and then like in terms of the designs, I own Tzolk'in, I own Tilitum. The other games I can pretty much leave. Marco Polo's one better than two. But then I looked at the board. I was interested in this, and I looked at the board, and I'm like, am I going to like this? But yes, it warrants a play.
Yeah, I'll give it a play because Devere did great productions. They're gorgeous. Ida Val's is a lovely artist, and the game looks very pretty. Danielle Tascini is actually, for me, the limiting factor. So we'll see. If the game is as dry and as much work to play as the rulebook was to read, then I think it'll be a pass.
That is fair. But of course, these are just the games that we've spotted and have highlighted. There's many other games there. I always find there's something there that I wasn't expecting or didn't know about. Wandering around, going around the stands and just finding something that you were unsure of, or things that you didn't even know existed, as part of the fun of the expo. And as long as you can get in to have a little try, great.
Yeah, it's a really good opportunity to try some stuff, even some older stuff that you might not have had a chance to try yet that you've been curious about. And there's other stuff that sort of caught my eye that I'm interested in looking at, but I just haven't had a chance to really look at too much detail yet, so I didn't really want to bring them up here on the podcast, but I'll definitely scope them out. Maybe we'll do some videos from the convention while we're there. I'll try to do something. We did some coverage at Essen, and so if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, or there is a TikTok, I only posted for a week while I was at Essen on the TikTok, but it is there, so you could maybe see videos on that.
And it's just Mike doing funny dances.
It is actual board game coverage.
It's not board game.
Well, I post it on all the socials, so I don't mind where you look. It's just really a case of, letting you know that it's there and that you can find it if you want to. I noticed that you didn't bring up Sandcastles of Burgundy, Barry. I wrote it there right for you. Are you not excited about it?
Yeah, you did. And no, I mean, it's a baby game for babies. It doesn't seem to really be anything to do with... It's a play on the name. It's nothing to do with the game, right?
Right.
Like it's a hide things under plastic sandcastles, and it's a memory game, is it not?
Well, I'll go and play it, and I'll come back about game of the convention. Best one ever.
There you go. Memory, set collection, dice rolling.
All the best things. Is it real time as well?
I mean, it could be
real time dexterity.
Yeah. Like it could be fun, but it's just nothing to do with Castles of Burgundy.
It's the same publisher. Same designer.
Same designer.
Anyway, we'll be back in a couple of weeks for another episode, so make sure that you subscribed onto whatever platform you listen to this on. Feel free to leave a comment. We'll definitely read them. And in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed hearing us talk about some games. And if there is anything you want us to cover in more detail, please do let us know. We're happy to do a deep dive on something if we know what you're interested in. The other thing is, this is only possible thanks to the wonderful patrons who support it on Patreon, who help make sure we've got equipment to make it sound good, and also who give us some direction about what they want to hear. Last week's big deep dive into Eclipse versus Twilight Imperium was because the patrons asked for it, and they kept asking, which one should I buy? So if you want to have a little bit more of a say on maybe what we talk about, what we do a deep dive on, if you like the discussion about theme, you want us to dive in on a mechanism or a style or something like that, you can always let us know. And if you're a Patreon, we'll definitely respond to you.
All right. Until next time. Bye.